our audience. I said good afternoon. Thank you very much. That's Schomburg style. Welcome to the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. Yes, we are. On behalf of our director, Joy Bivens, and our staff and volunteers, it's my pleasure to greet those of you here in person and those who are joining us online. The discussion taking place here today is an important one in the history of our people. This year, 2025, marks what many folks view as the start of the Harlem Renaissance, or the New Negro movement, following the publication of Elaine Locke's The New Negro. This is also the centennial of the founding of the Schomburg Center. We began as the division of, I'm sorry, did I hoo-hoo? Give me hoo-hoo. Thank you. We began as the division of Negro Literature, History, and Prints at the 135th Street Library. And for the next several months, we are going to be celebrating this centennial. You can join us this Saturday on June 14th, our combination of Centennial Festival and Juneteenth, where we're going to be out on 135th Street. There'll be activities inside. There'll be music, there's literature, there's Black comic books, our version of the celebration of our 100th birthday. Our institution's namesake, Arturo Alfonso Schomburg, came to the U.S. from Puerto Rico and described himself in the early 1900s as a Black Puerto Rican. He would tell people he is an Afro-Boriqueño. He understood then that his people were one of the branches of the African tree. And that's part of what this discussion is about here today. We've been this gathering place now in this community since the Harlem Renaissance. We are still the gathering for community and activists and scholars and historians and lovers of Black culture. So we're thrilled to have this commission here with us today, and thrilled that you're going to be taking part in this epic discussion. Please welcome the chair of the commission, Dr. Hawkins.
Thank you for having us here today, and congratulations on your centennial. I see the mic is not working. Hopefully they'll get that working, but thank you for having us. This certainly is a historic occasion to have the New York State Community Commission for Reparations Remedies here at the Schomburg. So thank you again for hosting us, and thank you all for being here, and thank you for those who appreciate us being on time. We certainly know that more folks will come, but we have an incredible education session, and we want to begin on a timely basis. So as was shared, good afternoon. I am Dr. Charnel Hawkins, and I am the chair of the New York, and I'm honored to be the chair of the New York State Community Commission for Reparations Remedies. Welcome to the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture here in Harlem. We are glad to be in Harlem, which is certainly a fitting occasion for today's important conversation about reparation remedies and the ongoing impacts of slavery and discrimination against Black New Yorkers. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to make room for my fellow commissioners that are here today, and I will start to my far left with our vice chair, Dr. Jenkins.
Good afternoon. Is that right? Is it on? Good afternoon, everybody. It's so wonderful to be here in the Schomburg. Let me tell you, the last time I was here in this auditorium is when President Obama's first inauguration, and as I was walking over, I was remembering how we were wrapped around the block to get in, but there was such a jubilant time. This reminds me of the work that we are doing here on this commission to bring some jubilance to the Black community. After many years of enduring slavery and now being those who are descendants from enslavement, we are doing something that hasn't been done in the state of New York, and I think this is the moment. And so we are so happy to have all of you with us today, and to hear these great experts share that the information that they've gathered so that we can do our job more efficiently and effectively on behalf of Black Americans and Blacks in the state of New York. So thank you all for being here and welcoming us here. Help us to do the work by telling others about the great work that we are trying to do throughout this state. Thank you very much.
Is this working? Okay, all right. I'm Dr. Ron Daniels. I'm president of the Institute of the Black World 21st Century, convener of the National African American Reparations Commission, and a member of the steering committee of the Global Circle for Reparations and Healing. And indeed, it is an honor to be here, particularly at the Schomburg, in the heart of the capital of Black America. That's Harlem. And the importance of this particular hearing is to continue to inform people about the legacy of slavery, enslavement and its legacies, not down south, but up south. And I must say that it has been a tremendous revelation simply serving on this commission, because even though I have known and knew a great deal, I am learning something new and more informative about the injuries and the harm and the theft of wealth every time we meet. So we have incredible experts that are going to present today, and we're looking forward to a very, very informative and productive hearing. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, and thank you for showing up. My name is Timothy Hogues, and I am the Commissioner for New York State Civil Service and the President of New York State Civil Service Commission. And I also am excited to be here today to partake in this public hearing. The thing that excites me most is to hear from the public. And so that's one of our call-outs, is to make sure that we get that input and feedback from the public. And the chair will give you some guidelines around that. But hopefully you have signed up. Hopefully after you hear from some of our experts on this, that it will continue to engage you, and that you will engage with your friends and families and your circles that may not have come here, because this is a very important conversation that is taking place here, especially at this time in our nation's history, as well as New York. And so I'm glad that we have a legislature and a governor that felt it important enough to assemble this commission so that we can do this work. So we're going to do our part, and so we're asking the community to continue to do your part as providing your testimony, your records, your insights, so we can make sure that we do this right in New York State. So once again, thank you for allowing me to be here today.
Thank you, commissioners, and we will have other commissioners joining us. They'll be here with us a bit later. I'm excited. Well, let me just introduce my role, my day job. As we all introduced our day jobs, I serve as the president and CEO of the Urban League of Rochester. But I think my most important job is that I'm Zoe's mom. And so Zoe is here. I just want to bring Zoe out because Zoe Hawkins. And Zoe was with us when we all were officially sworn in, and she's here with us today, and we just thought it was important that she be here and be at the Schomburg and doing this, helping us to do this important work. Say hello.
Hello.
All right, you can go sit down. She is clearly her mother's child. Now she wants the mic. So we'll begin. Let me just get my computer going. At first, and I'm reminded to thank everyone for being here, and thank you for being here on time. And as Commissioner Hogue said, today's hearing is about hearing your important testimonies, your evidence of enduring harms, and your recommendations, your action steps that we can help the commission inform the commission's report. And I'll talk more about the work that we will do. But before that, and if you've been watching the public hearings, you know that before every public hearing, we provide an education session. And today we will have 4 presentations, and I'm really thrilled about the presenters that we have today. But I also want to remind us that we maintain an environment that fosters constructive dialogue, that fosters respect. And so when we get to the testimony, the public hearing testimony, I will share a little bit on how we will communicate. But we are privileged to have elected officials join us today who support our reparations efforts. And so if there are any elected officials that are here now, we'll begin. If not, I'm going to get into our PowerPoint so you can understand a little bit about the work that we do. And so before our educational presentation, let's begin. And so if you haven't, for those that are still have not signed up, you can sign up to be part of the public hearing and to provide testimony or share any evidence that you have. You can do that right out front. So can we begin with the PowerPoint? So on this slide here, we're going to begin with a little just a historical context about enslavement in New York State. And contrary to what most assume, New York State was deeply entrenched in slavery. In fact, in 1626, the Dutch first brought enslaved Africans to this territory of Manhattan, and the Dutch called it New Amsterdam, but certainly New York City. And by the early 18th century, New York State had become the largest enslaving colony in the North, with 40% of white households enslaving black relatives. In 1711, a slave market was established at the foot of Wall Street, which is now known as the intersection of Wall and Water Streets. And the market remained active for decades, playing a central role in New York City's economy. And enslavement wasn't just in the South, it was foundational in New York State's development. So a little bit about the pervasiveness of slavery. In this excerpt, we'll find that in the 1800s, in the census, we learned that New York State, in 1799, New York State passed a bill for gradual abolition, but abolition wasn't fully implemented in New York until 1827. And this census document that you see here on the screen shows how New York State counted enslaved persons as under the 3/5 clause of the Constitution, which enhanced Southern political power, and is one example of the North's continued complicity in the institution of slavery. Now, in this slide, Emancipation Day, it demonstrates Thomas Nast's famous illustration of Harper's Weekly in 1863, depicting the promise and the hope following the Emancipation Proclamation. This image contrasts the horrors of slavery with aspirational visions of freedom. When we think about Juneteenth, we think about that freedom, including payment of work, public education, and home ownership. These dreams that many formerly enslaved people held, but as we now know, the reality of post-emancipation in USA falls short of these ideals, and reparations are about bringing this reality into fruition. Now, many of you may have heard of H.R. 40 at the federal level, which established a national commission to study and develop reparations for African Americans, which was first introduced in 1989 by Representative John Conyers, Jr., and has been reintroduced to Congress every year since without passage. This slide demonstrates that the many states that have had an active role in establishing some sort of commission or task force for reparation. In fact, that this 2024 map shows that there were 11 states and 22 localities across the United States, and that number is growing. And New York State is the second to take up the mantle, and California was first to establish a reparations task force in 2020. So the commission, the New York State Community Commission for Reparations Remedies, was established on December 19th, 2023 by our Governor Hochul. The bill was sponsored by Assemblymember Szilagyi and Senator James Sanders, Jr. Both have been with us many times. The commission is tasked with examining the legacy of slavery, subsequent discrimination, and the continuing impacts, and developing recommendations and appropriate remedies. That is our work that we will do together. To be clear, I want to help everyone understand, because we've already gotten calls. This commission does not enact reparations, or does it provide compensation or any restitution. This commission is about making recommendations to the governor and the legislative body of New York, and we will we hope that the community will champion the recommendations that we make. If you want to learn more about the commission, you can go to the website at newyork.gov/reparations, and you can learn about the commission. You can also send an email at reparationscommissions@reparations.newyork.gov. So here is a list of all the commissioners, and I'm so glad that they are joining. And so I'm going to pause and make room for the commissioners that just joined us. You've already met Dr. Daniels, Dr. Jenkins, and Commissioner Hogues, and myself, and I'll make room for Dr. Derrick to begin and introduce himself, and then our treasurer, Jennifer Jones-Austin.
Hi, first, apologies, navigating through traffic, but I made it here. I'm Derrick Hamilton. I am a university professor and the Henry Cohen Professor of Economics and Policy at the New School, and also the chief economist for the AFL-CIO.
Good afternoon. I will extend express the same apologies. The late, great Charlie Rangel once said to me, when I was coming from Brooklyn, this is where I lived, to see him, he said, did you have to show your passport? I had forgotten how long it takes sometimes to get from Brooklyn to Harlem, and it took me today about an hour and I guess about an hour and 25 minutes. But I'm glad to be here. I am honored to serve on this commission, and I lead the Federation of Protestant Welfare Agencies here in New York City, better than 100-year-old institution that has worked on issues of race and religion and discrimination for now, since its existence was created to do that. I also served alongside Commissioner Derrick Hamilton and Commissioner Daniel Favors as a commissioner for the New York City Racial Justice Commission. Hopeful that those of you who are in Harlem and are voters participated in that process where we passed 3 ballot measures to embed racial justice and equity in core government functioning. So, and then sometimes people hear my voice and they say, you sound familiar. I am co-host of WBLS's Open Line on Sunday mornings, and Thursday afternoons I join Reverend Al Sharpton for 2 hours where we talk about political and economic issues concerning Black Americans.
Thank you both. Yes, they deserve a round of applause. So a little bit about the commission. The commission has 9 members. If you want to learn more about who those 9 members are, one where most of us will be here today, but the commission also has an executive committee, which exists of myself, Dr. Deborah Jenkins, who's our vice chair, Linda Tarrant-Reed, who serves as secretary, and we just heard from Jennifer Jones-Austin, Esquire, as treasurer. And then the commission, we're committed to this work through an evidence-based process, but I also want to share that we are doing this work in tandem with our staff, and we're grateful for the staff. Dr. McKinney Chisholm-Straker, she serves as our executive director. Erica Rowe Owen, who is our interim operations manager. We also have Stuart Mitchell III, who is our parliamentarian, and we have Words Warriors as our communication team. Our commission is diverse in its expertise, but united in purpose. And so we look forward to hearing from all of the commissioners here today. The commission holds, I forgot I'm doing both. It's kind of hard to do both and speak at the same time, so I'm struggling here. But first of all, I've said this already, but I just want to highlight that to learn more about the commission, to see our meetings, our former public meetings or business meetings, you can go to our website at newyork.gov/reparations. But a little bit about the meetings. We hold 2 meetings right now. We hold a business meeting and public hearings. And those are, at the business meetings, we discuss our internal matters and the commission's work. And the public hearings, which you're attending today, is an event where we provide education and presentations, but we want to hear your ideas. We want to hear your testimony, your evidence of the enduring harms of slavery, but we also want to hear what action steps we should take as a commission. Maybe there are policy changes you may suggest, what ideas you have, but what the commission can add and inform its report to the governor and legislative body. So we've already shared how to get involved, but we're seeking your input and certainly want to make sure that you continue to stay involved with the commission. I also want to share that if you're watching today, but you know someone that does not have access to internet, they can also call in. You can call in at 518-473-3997. You can call in your public testimony. It won't hang up on you, and you can make your testimony as loud as possible. But certainly, we're seeking your input on what reparations might look like in New York State. And as I said, it can include inequities in housing and education, healthcare, climate justice, criminal legal system, investments in Black-owned businesses, potentially whatever your ideas are. We want to hear them. And so your suggestions and the remedies for the harms of slavery and subsequent structural discrimination are certainly appreciated. On the website, I also want to share that there's an opportunity to learn more about the staff that we're looking for. How you can get involved, that's here. But also, we are in the process of looking for legal counsel. So if you go to our website, as I mentioned already, ny.gov/reparations, we're looking for a legal counsel team, economist team, and an operations manager. And our hope is to have all of those staff in place by the end of summer. Before we get to our presentation, I just need to thank Governor Hochul, also Assemblymember Szilagyi, and Senator James Sanders Jr., the legislative body, our Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart Cousins, our Speaker, Carl Hasties. We thank them for answering our requests. We requested an extension of 18 months so that we can continue to do this work. It took the commission a long time to get staff hired. We're thankful to the support of OGS, but it's a process. It's a process that we need to go through. We have to put out an RFQ, and it takes time to hire good staff. So it's taken us about a year to get up and run. And now that we hope to have all of our staff hired by the end of the summer, we expect that we'll be able to advance the research, doing the evidence-based work so that we can prepare these recommendations. So more to come on that. Our report to the governor is due in January 2027. We believe that we can meet that goal, but we are grateful to them for answering the call and answering our requests and responding positively. So January 27 is when our report is due. So with that said, we want to make room for our presentation. So each speaker, we will have 4 presentations today. And each speaker will have about 20 minutes for their presentation. At the end of all 4 presentations, we will have Q&A. And our commission is still learning. Last time we had a lot of Q&A and we didn't make room for many of the other presentations, and we want to make sure that each speaker has an equal opportunity. And so if you can hold your questions, and we'll hold our questions, commissioners, until the end of the presentations, and so that we can ask questions. So our first presentation, I'm certainly pleased, and we are grateful that Dr. Ned Benton and Dr. Judy Lynn Peters, and we had an opportunity to have some conversation with them a little bit earlier, but they are from John Jay College of Criminal Justice. They co-direct the Northeast Slavery Records Index, a vital resource documenting the history of slavery in our region. Dr. Benton directed John Jay's Master of Public Administration program in inspection and oversight, and served for 15 years as a federal court monitor in civil rights cases about youth corrections. Dr. Peters is a member of the Steering Committee of Universities Studying Slavery and an international consortium engaged in truth-telling about slavery and racism. Both are public administration faculty who serve records, both are public administrative faculty whose slavery records work reflects their dedication to public history and documentation. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Benton and Dr. Peters. While we're waiting, just as a reminder, for those that want to make public testimony, you can do so outside. Please don't forget to sign up. Public testimony section will begin after the presentations, and thank you all for being here.
Good afternoon. My name is Judy Lynn Peters, and I am a doctoral lecturer at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. In 2017, Ned Benton and I decided to start what we called then the New York State Slavery Records Index, because we found that most of our students, myself included actually, had no knowledge of what was going on in New York State. They had no knowledge of slavery as an institution in New York State. And so we began the New York State Slavery Records Index, attempting to capture initially the phenomenon of slavery in New York City and then the state. And we very quickly learned that there was far more information available than we ever imagined. So the Slavery Records Index very quickly grew. We established a database, we set up a system that is available online at this site. It's free for anyone to use, and we began to document every single piece of information, every record, everything we could find about enslavement, a name of an enslaver, a name of an enslaved person, where they lived, where they worked, what institutions and organizations they transacted business with. We looked at slave ships, anything we could find. Colonial records, Bible records, anything we could find. And very shortly, we began to be contacted by other institutions in other states. And so now we are the Northeast Slavery Records Index, covering 9 states. So New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Pennsylvania. And we have over 94,000 records, and they added to daily, of slavery in all of these states, including 45,000 plus for New York State. We created this resource in order to enable other people to study slavery. One of the things we found very quickly was that there are people who are trying to find their past and learn about where their families came from, and information was out there, but it was siloed in various places, and a lot of the information, people had no idea what it meant. And so by documenting it into one database, we have set up systems whereby you can find those individual records, but you can also click on a community and get an entire report, which Ned will show you. You can piece together every single piece of information related to an enslaved person that we have, or an enslaver, or ship. So we've created a resource that allows anyone to do research that would normally take an individual several years to accomplish. When we began doing our work, we were just thinking about having this as an important research, but it's vital for any discussion of reparation to have this resource, because in order to figure out how to disperse reparations, you need to understand where slavery occurred and how it functioned and who was involved in it. So our mission is very much aligned with what the Reparations Commission is attempting to do. We are not only able to say who was enslaved in New York, we can say where, we can very often trace their movement from one place to another, and the impact of enslavement on various areas. Ned will show you how the system works. But I just want to take a moment to talk about a bit more about the database and why it's so important. First of all, it documents a history and gives voices and gives identities to thousands of people who otherwise would not be known. If I was born in 1773, let's say, the only way you'd know I existed is if someone sold me, or if I married, or someone decided to write my name down. As far as enslavers were concerned, I really didn't matter. So when we document someone, we give them an identity, we give them their history, we give them a place in the world that they didn't have before. We also enable families to understand where they came from. We allow people to understand, why am I here if my history is this? How did I get here? So we are able to create a history, a context in which to understand our current lives. And with what's going on right now, that's never been more important than before. The project advances the idea of justice and equity by, again, giving significance to people, by giving significance to the type of work we're doing. So this scholarship is very important. The idea of creating community-based public historians who are documenting public history is very, very important. By restoring the names and identities to people, we are holding our enslavers to account, and we are also giving people back their dignity. We also serve scholars and students, because students will now be able to understand where they fit into history. You're not just going into a classroom and studying dead white people, you're studying yourselves. You see yourself as a place in history. And our lives matter. I think I can't say that enough. Our lives matter. Where we are today is definitely the result of where we were 400 years ago. And when you have, in our current political environment, people who are trying to erase our heritage, people who try to sort of take away anything that's unpleasant for us, people to know about, they're saying that our lives don't matter. So by restoring this history, we are empowering not only the past, but we're empowering our future. I'll let Ned talk about the specific work of the project and show you demonstrations of what NESRI can do. Thank you.
Are we going to go ahead and put it up? We're going to go live and actually work with NESRI rather than slides of NESRI. Well, it's not up. Whoop, okay, here we are. Okay, I'm Ned Benton. I'm Judy Lynn's sidekick at John Jay. And what you're looking at here is the Northeast Slavery Records Index as it would appear on your own computer at home. If you brought it up, you can get it at nesri.us. That's the quickest way to reach it. Now the entire, I'll just show you briefly the entire New York data set. Whoops. We broke the computer. Yeah. There we go. So what we're working with is a community report. This drills into our records for a community, but I just designated the state as a whole, and you can see this is a diagram of our state records for the whole state. So for 1 year, we have 8,000 records. Then we go into census records. So this you can find out about New Paltz. You can find, I'm going to show you essentially New York, Manhattan. But you can see that there are, we can see the census records for any of these communities. Then these are our additional census records. And then we'll get there. Here we have records about enslaved people, and I'm only showing you the first table of names, and we have 8,682 records. So I can click on any one of them and see the details about that person. So that you can sort of poke into the tables as you see them and see the details. Then here's the names of the enslavers, and we've got 43,144 index records of enslavers naming enslavers. Sometimes an individual enslaver gets many, 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 many records because of all the people involved. Then these are advertisements that for enslaved people. And we have 1,041 advertisements. These are informative because they describe the people. They're describing them because they're trying to capture them, but you get a sense of what the person was like, what the person spoke like, how the person dressed, what has happened in the life of that person. These are records of sales. So these are announcements of auctions, and it's describing, and so we have 3,650, oh, wait a minute, those are the, right there, that was the records. We had 579 records of sales, but we have 3,658 slave ship records. Some of these are very small, where there would be 1 or 2 people being transported, say, from the Caribbean up. And some of them, there'll be hundreds and hundreds. And we code when someone is an investor. And so the person might not be on the ship, but might be responsible for financing the ship. Then these are narratives, particularly narratives that are written by the enslaved people. Students using Nesri want to, they often want to write up a story of someone, and this gives them a lead to where the information might be. Then these are governance officials who are documented as enslavers. And you can see that in some of these, where it says INVNY in the search tag, that means that this person is a governance leader, but also a slave ship investor from New York. And so we're looking at mayors of New York and elected officials. And this list gets bigger and bigger, but we've identified 353, and we haven't begun to do it upstate. These are enslaved soldiers in the Revolutionary War, and we actually have people on both sides. BON means this is what's called the Book of Negroes. It's the inventory of people who fought on the side of the Brits and were able to emigrate to Canada afterwards. And we actually shared this list because the Canadian, the black loyalist societies in Canada are proud and love the people that are there, people who emigrated to Canada, but they didn't know the story beforehand. And we allow them to learn the story of their ancestors before they crossed the water. And similarly, they got back and told us about the people that we knew about in New York and what happened to them. Well, one from my community where I lived actually went to, it ended up in Sierra Leone via Canada. A very miserable experience. Then these are other, more information about the area, places where you can find records of enslavement, and then sites of interest. And then this is lists of advocates. What we do, like upstate, we've coded people involved in the Underground Railroad. So we'll code enslaved people from the South being assisted by people in New York, helping them to reach their freedom. Then finally, there's an opportunity in the report to do online research. So I'm going to particularly, I'll pick the abandoned children. These are children. I now have selected it, and you'll see the list. It goes on and on down here. These are children who, under the law that was described up here in the presentation at the beginning, the gradual emancipation law, the law allowed the enslaver to take the baby away from the mother and turn it over to the welfare overseer. And so these are records, names of records of children and the enslavers who were taken at birth from their mother and transferred to be to be under the so-called care of overseers. And so we have the names. Then if we go back, I can do this again and show you here is and I've got I have tons of these tags. I mean, like 50 different tags we can use. Here, this is sales in which a child is being sold separately from the parent. These are in New York, and these name the day. It's the time, the name, these are. But we have these records, and we have them across the Northeast. So now I'm going to go back up. And I'm going to search, because we want to talk about basically from lower Manhattan to Harlem, basically what was at the time known as New York County. So I'm going to select New York. I'm going to write in here New York. Whoops, thank you. Somebody's watching. Now, whoops, almost there. Well, it's going to tell me. There we go. Now, this is a supercomputer that's doing this because it's doing all kinds of analysis and pivot tables because it's creating tables of this data. And anytime we change the data, the report that would come up is different. So this is information about the borough of New York, which was what Manhattan was called then. And so these are the records drilling in, and once again, we have the census records. We have names of enslaved people, and we have the names of the enslavers. We have advertisements, and we have the enslavers. These are the sales. And so forth. These are, now I've got 2 more minutes. I'm going to show you one other thing, and then because this is a resource for this area to study its history of enslavement, but for the commission, you've got a database. You have a database that you might, it needs to be filled in. For example, the the records of the sales of the registrations of the children, if I was to run this report for Brooklyn right now, it would be blank in that category. But we've just discovered the records. And so we're going to be filling it in for Brooklyn, which had a very high level of slavery going on. But we know that we're missing lots and lots of these records. And according to the New York's records law, it's illegal for a government to destroy records that refer to enslavement. It's in the law. I'll show you where it is in the law, and I think it's time that we let some governments, because there are towns upstate that insist to me that they don't have it. You know, they'll admit that they had enslaved people in 1800, but then they won't admit that any of them had any babies. And we need to, the commission needs to make sure we get a full record. Now, I'm going to show you one other thing, and then I'll stop. This is a different study. We did artificial intelligence and slavery research, but this is one. I'm going to show you, we'll select Harvard, just since they're in the news. What we're doing here is a report on graduates, on enslavement at Harvard. And we're doing this for all of the colonial universities and colleges, largely the Ivy League. But what we see, this is a record of their, these are the records that we have. And we have records of college officials who are enslavers. And then we have records of students and alumni who are enslavers. And to us, it's particularly important. You go to Harvard, and your professor and your college president introduces you to slavery. There was a professor in the divinity school at Harvard who used an enslaved person as a teaching assistant. I mean, and so you were taught that this was something that was okay. And so we're looking at people going to these campuses and getting the infection and becoming enslavers after their graduation. And so the universities look at their shoes when they talk about slavery and say, yeah, we want to talk about the people who are enslaved on campus. As a college professor, I know when we're accredited, they're interested in what we taught our students and what they accomplished afterwards. And boy, we taught them a lot about slavery, and they did a lot of it afterwards, and we can show it. So now this is a list of students and alumni, and this is the list of enslaved people. At this point, we've got 355 of them, but the last one is clergy. And here, you know, these colleges were divinity schools before they were colleges. For hundreds of years, Harvard and Yale and all of they were divinity schools. And so you had people come to learn to be a minister, and they were taught by professors who were enslavers. And then they went off to lead congregations all across the Northeast, saying, you know, God bless me, I'm an enslaver. God meant it to be this way. I can do it. I'm the minister. You can do it too. And so, you know, this is like a vector for the disease of enslavement. You know, it's spread in the campuses and through the churches. And so we've got the heads of churches doing slave trading. And so, but what we're doing is documenting that Harvard and Yale and their legacy for enslavement didn't just happen on campus or in Cambridge or New Haven. It's something that they caused to happen all over the Northeast, and Lord knows probably down in the South too. And so now I'll shut this down. But anyway, this is, you know, what puzzled Judy Lynn and me is why doesn't New York State already have a slavery records index? Why didn't they have a slavery records index 20 years ago? But they didn't, and they didn't in Maine, they didn't all the way to Penn. Nobody did this, and they aren't doing it now, so who made us the slavery records indexers? We did it, it was kind of an act of asserting our will that if the states weren't going to do what they were supposed to do, we would do it. And if any one of these states said, well, look, we'd like to take this over, I'd say, well, if it was an authentic effort, we would help you. And we're going to be talking about with some southern states where there are some people who are interested in doing the same thing. Maybe someday we can be a national slavery records index. But if you could do one thing, help us to find the rest of the records. And help with the partnership of all sorts of people in the state, help us to find the rest of the records. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctors Benton and Peters. I know we said we were going to hold on questions, but you cannot walk away. Just say that and just leave us here. But we just want to know, what does that look like? When you say help us find the records, what does that mean? Can you talk a little more about that?
Sure. We kind of recruit people to help us in a variety of ways. I mean, students help us. Judy Lynn is working with a team of students in the Bronx from Lehman College, helping them to uncover records of enslavement in the Bronx. And they don't get paid for it. It's a class. It's just that, but it's sort of announcing that this is something that should be done. Now, we've had we put out a survey to historical societies asking for advice about where we'd find records. We got a lot, and so they can be helpful. Then we did receive from the American Council of Learned Societies a $100,000 grant to look for records, and we gave the money away. Since we support our own operations, we gave the money largely to groups in the 9 states, historical societies and some other museums and independent historians to go find the records. But I think we could design a program. I mean, I know where the records are missing often, because I can count the records for a town, and I can count the records for its 1800 census, which tells me how many enslaved people they had. And I can compute some averages. And it's the ones where they just don't have, they have a number of enslaved people that would support a certain level of records, and then we haven't got the records. So that would be where I would try to go fishing. But I would also say that if the commission was to write to every town and every city, reminding them that it's illegal to destroy or hide any record of enslavement, and I'll show you the citations, it's in the state law, and invite them to help us locate the rest of their records. And, then we'll set up teams of students to help code it, and frankly, anyway, we can figure this out. But this ought to be a fundamental thing that the commission does, because it's like it's a trial. We need to assemble the evidence before we sentence. Make up the I'm waiting for the day when someone says, well, it was all fake. That, that was a myth, it was made up by somebody, and it didn't really happen. And we've got the evidence. We've got documentary evidence, original documents that shows that all this stuff happened.
So with your magic wand, if you said, hey, commission, here's your charge, that charge would be to write these letters?
That would be the first thing. I think we ought to have some discussions.
We
I don't
can-
know
we
how
can
these
have some continued
discussions go
dialogue,
on,
yeah.
but I think, you know, we would have a lot of ideas, and we have examples from other states that have reparations commissions that we've worked with, and that we have partners in each of the states, and they're working on these things too. And so we can
We look forward to an extended conversation with the commission about this, because we have a charge to explore what a Bureau of Reparations would look like for New York State. And so this could be part of that conversation. So thank you,
Well,
Dr.
and maybe
Benson.
there is an agency that would take responsibility for
Yeah.
this, or maybe there needs to be some kind of structure for it. You know, we're not.
That's
anyway,
part of our charge, to explore what that looks like.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Anyway, we're very willing to help and very interested in helping, and we're going to keep doing this anyway.
Thank you. Let's give Dr. Benson and Dr. Peters a round of applause. Before we begin with our next presentation, one of our fellow commissioners joined us, so I want to give her an opportunity to introduce herself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Commissioner Livy Daniel Favors, and it is always a pleasure to sit in a space where we can learn more about this history and take a Sankofa approach to providing liberation for our people.
Thank you. We're so glad that you are here with us today. We have one commissioner missing today, and I just want to acknowledge her. Linda Brown Robinson is our commissioner from Syracuse, New York, could not be with us today, but we want to say hello to her. I'm sure she's watching. Next we're honored to introduce Peggy King-Yoder, principal of King-Yoder Cultural Projects Consulting, a pioneering preservationist, community organizer, filmmaker, designer, and global expert in African burial ground memorialization. Mrs. King-Yoder's remarkable work began in Lower Manhattan and has reached across oceans to protect forgotten historic sites of the African diaspora. Her dedication has taken her globally, including to the remote British territory of St. Helena in the South Atlantic, where she worked to protect vital African heritage sites. Her legacy of cultural preservation and historical justice provides crucial insights on how we memorialize and remedy historical wrongs. Please welcome Peggy King-Yoder. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. I just will, does this just automatically come up? Sorry. Oh, okay. Great. And the clicker, is that here? Oh, thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm a cultural projects consultant, and the core of my work requires that I work with my community and marginalized communities on repair. And so I started with the African Burial Ground National Memorial when I worked in the mayor's office of construction under Mayor David Dinkins. So what I learned, because after all these years, I've been doing this for more than 30 years, people ask me, why is the preservation of an African burial ground important? Now, I know for some of you who are here, that may seem unique and why not? But people know that just generally it's important, but why is it really so important that you have woven your career around preserving burial grounds globally, right? Because transatlantic slave trade is a global story, right? So I've worked with a lot of archaeologists, and archaeologists say that what in part defines us as human is how we bury our dead. The cat doesn't bury its dead, the dog doesn't bury its dead. It's how we bury our dead. When we bury our dead, we say important words over a loved one. We may pour libations, we may sing a song, we may place a special object. We engage in acts of remembrance. So, in thinking about that, I thought, imagine a community of people living in a society that defines them as less than human. They have no rights that a white man need respect. And on the occasion that a loved one passes away, and only by permission of the oppressor that they are given an opportunity to bury that dead, gather together to do that, what you would be witnessing with that community of people, you would be witnessing a community of people reclaiming the humanity of that individual. That's revolutionary. That is a form of resistance in a society that says they're not human. And so when I think of African burial grounds, they are sites of resistance. They are sites where revolutionary acts of remembrance took place. And so whether the bones are in the ground still or not, in this country, we preserve battlegrounds. And burial grounds have that power, that history, and that significance. So that is the way I think about these sites, and that the power and the significance behind why they need to be preserved. So just a little bit about me. I'm not from New York. I'm not a New Yorker. I'm from Southwest Georgia. In mid-March of 1988, I made good on a promise to my father that upon his death, my brother and I would build his coffin by hand. We sketched out a design, and by morning, we were at work on the back porch of a Victorian funeral home. We attended to what can only be described as a profound act of love and remembrance. The result, a fine wooden coffin handsomely crafted to cradle Dad in his crossing over. I fulfilled a duty to a man the world knew as a legendary civil rights attorney. His skills inside the courtroom were his weapon in defense of Black people in South Georgia at the height of Jim Crow. And 3 years later, after his passing, I followed in my father's footsteps, advocating for Black people, defending humanity in death, and dedicating my life to reclaiming the final resting places at home and across the Atlantic. Although I was born in the American apartheid, overcoming the legacy of historical trauma was never lost on my children, who grew up in New York City in the 90s. Note the collage on the lower right. For a grade school project on civil rights, our son interpreted the beating of a man he never met, my father. Newspapers carried a dramatic picture of his grandfather, a civil rights attorney, bleeding profusely from a head wound. A racist sheriff, the guy with the cane, objected to his involvement in a local case and attacked him when he walked into his office with a walking cane. He'd gone to the sheriff's office to consult with his white client. I was not quite my son's age when this happened, and I don't recall anything of that day when Dad came home with a bandage on his head, and oh, by the way, his lawyer was Judge Constance Baker Motley, who was based in Georgia at the time. But I was struck by my son's interpretation of the story about his grandfather, by his turning a grossly dehumanizing act on its head. See, the big blue rectangular bandage pictured plastered across the tall figure's head, my son wants us to understand that despite the trauma inflicted, his grandfather's humanity remains intact. He is a giant figure as compared to the diminutive figure who is the sheriff. He is heroic and undefeated. The good has trumped evil, and his grandfather's legacy in the pursuit of justice matters. The power matters, and the power and relevance of who he is and what he does will carry on. Well, the significance of that is that my son, like all of us, is flexing his muscles and exercising his agency in reparative justice. He has to. We have to. It is our means of survival. How we interpret history and the lens we use means everything. It has power. Similarly, I am forever inspired by my father's epitaph etched in stone at our family plot, which was penned, and I consider it a call to action. He writes, "Let what good there has been in the lives we've lived be a model to the lives yet unspent and to those who come after. Let our occasional deeds of courage and lofty hopes and dreams, which marked our earthly vigil, be your inheritance to gird you in your reach for the uncertainties of forever. Let our past visions of tomorrow's fulfillment be for you this moment's challenge, and let it be in your farewell that you will have kept aglow the fragile sparks of life's trust to illumine the way and make safe the legions of Hannibal to follow." When in 1990 I served in the New York Mayor's Office of Construction, a friend of mine with New York City Parks shared a construction document and federal report with old maps showing a burial ground thought to be 5 New York City blocks in size. It was a burial ground for enslaved and free blacks, located 2 blocks north of my office in City Hall Park. My friend, Harry Worster, was 27 years my senior, and he was a well-loved City Parks worker, a proud German-American and native New Yorker who often spoke about his childhood, New York history, and gardening. Harry attended New York City public schools and considered himself quite the authority figure in New York's history, but Harry was not prepared for the historical account that placed his fair city at the center of the slave trade, only second to Charleston. Not unlike the American South, African people were living in bondage and subjected to oppressive codes and laws designed to dehumanize them, and who were expressly prohibited from burying their loved ones within the boundaries of the city of New York. Harry never learned this history in school, and now, to add insult to injury, he was learning that his government was moving forward with a plan to desecrate the site further and dishonor the lives and memory of those who were buried there. He left the document in my care, vowed to be an ally, only after securing a promise that I would initiate efforts to change the course of the project and ultimately New York's history. That was more than 30 years ago. Harry has since passed, but his remarkable legacy of activism joined with the larger descendant community and his willingness to join in our efforts to confront and redress an uncomfortable truth helped fuel what has become a movement, a global movement to preserve and memorialize African burial grounds around the world. Little did he know that it would change my life, your life, and our work. So, for the New York African Burial Ground, the unearthing of artifacts and human remains was shrouded by government gag orders around archaeology, fearing delays in development. I had been named the project liaison and special advisor to New York's first African-American mayor, monitoring the project. Archaeology was the most concerning issue at the outset. And it is a concerning issue if you've been looking at what's been happening in Africa and a lot of the museums that have taken artifacts. You may be aware that archaeology's past is rooted in colonialism, complicit with perpetuating acts of violence against Black and brown people, from theft of artifacts to dehumanizing bodies of color. It is a discipline that I once heard described by an archaeologist as an act of violence and destruction in search of a collective past. For generations, historical narratives have not served Black and brown communities well, so it was most concerning that the project lacked Black leadership and authorities in archaeology, as well as insufficient community engagement. The New York African Burial Ground transformed what leadership should look like for such projects and what meaningful descendant community engagement looks like. Later, a rubric would be drafted helping to outline best practices for community engagement. Today, archaeologists of color are leading the way to establish new standards for the ethical treatment of human remains in communities of color. Research and interpretation, all important, because you can find a site, but the people who get to tell the story and interpret it authentically, that is the only way the story and the project is done correctly, and ultimately impacting memorialization and what we leave as a legacy for the rest of our community. Descendant voices challenged others. This was the beauty of the African Burial Ground, the movement, the community involvement. Descendant voices challenged others to consider their points of view beyond the hegemonic practices and governmental frameworks. As the project's leadership, archaeology, interpretation progressed, I pursued work with community engagement and collaborated on how this history could be expressed in the landscape. So once we find the history, how are we going to tell the story? How does it take a place? How do we occupy space in the cultural landscape? Physical reminders are what we use to keep ourselves close to important events, people, and places. And we understand how important that is when we have a government in place that's trying to get rid of those things. Contemplating how this history should show up in the New York cultural landscape mattered. So I served, along with others, to identify artists for commissions honoring the history, and I subsequently was named the director leading the national design competition to realize the first national memorial and interpretive center honoring enslaved and free Blacks in New York. Envisioning transformative cultural landscapes, that's what the goal was, meant realizing the African Burial Ground National Memorial and the Interpretive Center. We envisioned a place that reminded everyone of our origin story and our relevance to the global community. We rendered visible the invisible through the placement of art throughout the federal building, reminding workers and visitors alike that they are on sacred ground, a place of reverence. We envisioned a place of repair and support acts of remembrance, ceremonies, and communal gatherings to ensure a living legacy of future generations. The site hosts over 400 human remains, bringing scores of visitors, community who lay flowers, engage in libations, song, prayer, sometimes dance. West African craftsmen built and carved the coffins. We envisioned spaces where people gather to reflect and engage in sustained work towards changing the nation's consciousness. The African Burial Ground, the New York African Burial Ground, it really continues to inform my work and the work of so many others globally in this kind of protection, historic preservation. And it helps us to help others empower marginalized communities and how they envision and transform their cultural landscape on their terms, right? Support existing forms of memory work within their respective communities. And I say their respective communities because I work with a lot of communities in Georgia, across the country. Everybody has a different threshold, and you work with that community. Encouraging open dialogue about their past, allowing communities to express their needs and their desires for remembrance, prioritize preventing harm by forming strategies of building relations that avoid exploitation and trauma, and support the sharing of stories and methods across generations. In 2022, I partnered with the National Park Service to convene a community of memory workers, scholars, artists, architects, journalists, historians, and others to share an exchange of ideas. That is the dinner table that's pictured there within the federal building. And to have them have this exchange of ideas and talk about their successes and their challenges is a way to inform other projects, walking away from that dinner, being able to do and make transform what was happening in their own communities. Building global alliances. We envisioned in New York that our memorial was going to speak beyond the boundaries, beyond the landmass, and it did. So I went to London and I met with Black members of Parliament, and what we envisioned in a living memorial that would resonate throughout the US as well as with our diaspora of brothers and sisters. The story of the transatlantic slave trade is a global one, and it's not bound by landmass. The work in reparative justice reaches far and wide. It reaches to Namibia, where I went to help members of the community to address and remound the burials, unmarked burials in the desert, whether supporting descended communities navigating emotional landscapes like this unmarked burial site in Swakopmund, Namibia, reparative work in restoring graves of those who perished during the Namibian genocide, stories of trauma and repair run deep. They know about the New York African burial. Or in Noonan, Georgia, they know about the New York African Burial Ground, working with and accompanying community activists, protesting the development of a multi-million-dollar skate park, which destroyed several acres of a historic Black cemetery, right? And asking me to come and march with them to downtown Noonan, where the KKK met us in their trucks, right? Or in Gloucester, Virginia, working with descendants of slave-holding families who reached out, and they actively were seeking out my help to implement forms of repair, like engaging local descendants in a conversation about how they envision reparative action. In this case, the slave-holding family wanted to donate waterfront land to local descendants for their use and preservation. Equally, I help community walk through and define what memorialization looks like for them and in this place. Does memorialization mean something built? Does reparation mean something built? Or can it be just as profound as a community of people simply occupying space at rest when they knew that they are descendants of people who were at work? Or in this case, A Story of Bones, a film that I worked on and was in the film when I was contacted by a Namibian woman on the island of St. Helena in the South Atlantic between South Africa and South America. They knew about the New York African Burial Ground. And in working on the island of St. Helena in 2016, I began working with the British filmmakers and a Namibian woman, Anina van Niel, who was leading the fight on a burial ground on the island of St. Helena, a British territory in the South Atlantic off the coast of South Africa, an island that is celebrated and noted for the imprisonment and burial of Napoleon Bonaparte. His body no longer is there, but his tomb is there, and that is what they promote. They pour monies into promoting that history. The documentary premiered in 2024 on PBS television and 2022 Tribeca Film Festival. The BBC backed out of the film because we implicate the UK, and they receive their funding from the UK, the government. So connecting the global narrative is essential to practical memory work because the history of the slave trade is not confined to a single landmass, or conversations about how to memorialize, how to do this repair work requires us to cast a wide net if we're going to develop a lexicon of ideas and responses for incorporating an authentic narrative into the cultural landscape. And
The latest map puts all of this, including the jail site, including the power station, right up the valley to where you hit straight into
the base of that hill?
Yeah. As the upper burial ground.
Are you kidding me? This is huge.
Yeah.
This is massive. To my work in the Dutch Caribbean, and right now, you have the Kingdom of the Netherlands, who is here in New York, and they're celebrating in New York, and they have made an apology to their role in slavery, and they are investing and working with government here in New York, in the state of New York. And so I'm doing work as well, unrelated to the direct work here, but with activists and community members in the Dutch Caribbean. And again, back stateside and just north of here at 211th Street and 10th Avenue in Inwood, where I work with developers. A developer contacted me because they understood they were building a shelter. They realized that the site that they were building on, though it had been dug up in 1903 to make way for streets and the remains are no longer there, that it had served as the Dykeman family burial ground for enslaved people. I'm sorry? The Bronx?
What we want
You
to
think
thank.
that's where I don't know where they are, but anyway.
We won't have time for call and response. We're over
Okay.
time on this one, so we'll have to
All
continue.
right, so nobody knows where the remains of these individuals are, but we will have reburial. There are 7 individuals that are at the Museum of Natural History because and that we have, I coordinated conversations with the museum for repatriation of those remains at the site. So I'm going to advance through here. So these are just images of the proposed, the designed memorial space and exterior garden for reburial at the Inwood site. And the facade. So in wrapping up,
I was just going to say, if there were one thing that you wanted the commission to know, because we're over time, but if there were a charge for the commission.
well, I'll just do this. The lens by which we choose to respect our past matters. The stories we tell ourselves, the stories we tell each other, has meaning. They're powerful and can have a profound impact in shaping who we are and how we engage with one another as individuals, as communities, as a nation. Regrettably, the deliberate omission and silencing and misrepresentations of historical narratives sacred places, and cultural heritage has disproportionately affected Black and brown indigenous communities, and it's a disservice to us all. People give meaning. When you talk about reparations, there is money, but it's really that the people give meaning to culture, history, and places, and how we engage, how we elevate and empower the community to move through those spaces is incredibly important, because the truth is we've all been in each other's lives since the beginning of time, and we have a collective history that's unbound. And like me, you and everybody else is here because somebody before you survived something. We are here because somebody before us overcame something, somebody before us endured something, and somebody, in order for us to be here, somebody before us loved somebody. So it matters how we choose to remember, and it is the legacy we leave for each other and the generations of Hannibal to follow. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. King. We won't have time for questions, but we thank you, Ms. King-Yorta. Great presentation. We certainly would love to have a time where we can ask you questions. Our next presenter is Dr. Greg Carr, Associate Professor of Africana Studies and the Chair of the Department of Afro-American Studies at Howard University, where he also serves as an adjunct faculty in the Howard School of Law. Dr. Carr holds a PhD in African American Studies from Temple University and a JD from Ohio State University of Law. He's also the first vice president of the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilizations and the former board member of the National Council for Black Studies. He's recognized 3 times as a Professor of the Year by Howard University students and honored for teaching excellence. Dr. Carr brings invaluable academic and legal perspective to our understanding of reparations. As we prepare for Dr. Carr, please give him a round of applause. And as Dr. Carr comes to the stage, I have to apologize to my fellow commissioner, Linda Tarrant-Reed, our secretary. I didn't get a chance to introduce her. I apologize. If you can introduce yourself while Dr. Carr gets himself ready.
It's on. Welcome, everyone. My name is Linda Tarrant-Reed, Commissioner of the Reparations Commission. I'm very happy to be here. This is a home away from home. As a historian, I've worked very hard on the research of African American history and culture right in this space. I'm very happy about the presentations. It's important for us to understand the history of our people and the history of our past and the connectivity to the global diaspora. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Linda Tarrant-Reed. For all of you that are here and just joining, welcome. As we begin our public hearings, we always begin with education. And so this is our 3rd presentation. We have one more following. If you have not signed up for a public hearing, I understand, commissioners, we have 14 pages of individuals signed up for testimony. Let's give them a round of applause. I just want to acknowledge, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up, Harlem. Dr. Carr, 1 second, because I do want to acknowledge that we have Shakira Timms in the audience from Governor Hochul's office. So let's give her a round of applause for being here today. We thank you for being here. And I'll go ahead and honor my own cousin, one of my elders, Yvonne McCrae. I thank her for being here in the audience today. Thank you. Dr. Carr, we are ready for your presentation. And if you still want to sign up, you can. You can sign up right up at the front, and you can give your name, and we'll prepare for you. We'll have testimony shortly. Dr. Carr, the microphone is yours.
Thank you, Chair Hawkins, Vice Chair Jenkins, distinguished members of the commission, including some comrades and elders I've known for a long time. And distinguished assembled community. Forgive me for being so formal. I wrote my remarks when I had the honor of testifying before the California Commission, and also in D.C., where that legislation was enacted this spring in March. So that bill actually passed. It's in place. Commission's being formed. They snuck it past the white nationalists in the federal legislature. And so we're gonna get with our brother in Maryland and keep it rolling. So let me just read from the page. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on one of the most morally urgent and historically significant issues of our time: reparations for African descended people in the state of New York. Let me begin with a core premise. New York is not just a state. Professor John Henry Clark, historian, founding chair of the Department of Black and Puerto Rican Studies at Hunter College, no stranger, of course, to the Schomburg, given that that was one of his jegnas, referred to New York City as a multi-ethnic nation. This is also true of the United States, a polity and a federal state containing and composed of many different nations. New York, in its all-inclusive array of global humanity, is a microcosm of the United States and more. It is a preview of a potential America, a multi-ethnic, multinational, multilingual, globally connected polity reflecting the complexity, contradictions, and promise of a truly post-colonial state. What we do here, can influence those possibilities here and elsewhere. With that in mind, what is the concept of and process for repair for those trafficked as part of the originary violence of a pan-European settler project turned racialized state, culturally and socially flexible from its inception, and now on the verge of constitutional, political, and cultural crisis and renegotiation as a result of persistent racial and class equities? New York State is home to a truly global African population. African U.S. descendants of the Great Migrations, Afro-Caribbean, Afro-Latinx, Afro-European, Afro-Asian, long-standing, and more recent continental African immigrants, all partially curated in a social structure of racial hierarchy and material exploitation built on stolen labor and life possibilities of the human trafficked and their descendants. New York's largest city is a global African capital in which human aspirations both reinforce and overflow artificially imposed limits of race, gender, and class. It is precisely because of this complexity and refusal to surrender to limiting possibilities that New York must lead, not lag, the reparations conversation. Let us be clear, reparations are not charity. They are investments in a better future shaped by a more inclusive past. They are not simply about what has happened in that past. They are about remaking systems of harm that continue today, rooted in settler colonialism and the centrality of race as a global ordinal classification system essential to extracting profit from the labor of trafficked African people, a convergence of global catastrophes that have shaped the state, the country, and the modern world. New York was not peripheral to this system. It was both engine and beneficiary, from goods, services, and materials produced with stolen labor that fueled entrepreneurial and industrial rise, to financial institutions that underwrote and profited from human trafficking and the exploitative labor regimes it enabled and developed in slavery's wake. The North was central, not neutral. Former Governor David Patterson once said that the New York African Burial Ground was the Ellis Island of African New Yorkers, and thank you, Ms. King George, you and your teams for doing what you all did at the NABG. For years, I've taken students from Howard University's College of Arts and Sciences freshman seminar to the burial ground in a ritual recognizing the central role that Howard played in researching and preserving the site and shrine. We were honored to be the guardians of those ancestral remains for a decade, as many of you know. And every year we would come in the fall to thank New York, to thank you for standing guard over our ancestors. Our students learned that our memory is buried beneath our feet.
Hi. I think you're great, and you're speaking beautifully. I can't keep
I'm pausing my time.
I'm sorry. I know you only have 20 minutes.
You've answered Beyonce's question. Can you keep up? No. Don't want you to lose your hand breath. So I'm afraid we're going to have to go to the recording.
People understand, that would be wonderful.
My apologies.
And it's okay. It's not about apologizing, just about I'm keeping up and you're keeping up with me.
Equity
Thank
at the
you.
center of this.
Okay.
Thank you. Let me slow down.
Thank you.
Thank you. So our students learn that our memory is buried beneath our feet. That pays better?
It's fabulous.
Gotcha.
Keep it up.
Okay. Long unacknowledged, but now undeniable. The central salient lesson for today is this. The first act of repair is self-determining self-repair. The United Nations, blocks away from where we sit in this institution, created from seeds of archival memory planted by a Spanish origin member of the global African diaspora, of course, Arturo Schomburg, has embraced the call for reparations. New York State is uniquely positioned to meet that call with a legacy of global education and justice from Columbia, NYU, and Cornell, the Medgar Evers College, and the state and city universities of New York, Ganea John Jay after today, of course. These institutions traverse the full range of class and culture experiences of New Yorkers and must be intellectual centers for thinking and designing engines of repair. So I want to offer four assertions to help guide the conversation on reparations. Number one, reparations are about structural and collective transformation, not just individual restitution. Following the examples of California, Evanston, Illinois, Tulsa most recently, Washington, D.C., and avoiding temporary setbacks, and they are temporary in states such as Maryland, we can leverage the study commission for more than micro-targeted policy-making recommendations and symbolic acts. This commission must build on the momentum of the moment to undertake real-world structural solutions, addressing poverty, education, public health, social services, housing, and more. All challenges rooted in legacies of racial capitalism. This commission can devote part of its time to rethinking the concept of repair, echoing the words of a most recent ancestor, Ngugi wa Thiong'o. We must ask, how do we decolonize modern society? The structures built on African captivity and its afterlives are still with us and shape the daily experiences of every one of us in our neighborhoods, in our schools, in our work, in our courts, and perhaps most foundationally, in our minds. Number two, race and lineage are unavoidable, but not sufficient. Deeper concepts of repair need a framework that codifies remedies that recognize and respect the legal lineage status of descendants of the trafficked, while simultaneously recognizing the broader cultural and political harm to African people globally. New York was the beating heart of the Garvey movement, and Pan-African solidarity has always fueled the local progress of African populations. We'll have question and answer, and I'm there. I am here for all the smoke. While the origins of New York, it's fine.
Doctor, I'm sorry for 1 second. So okay. You may agree or disagree with the. So once again, we're just asking each of our members in the audience to be respectful. We're not when it's okay, but when it's
fine.
Okay, so
y'all have time.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you.
We're going to keep going, but thank you.
Commissioner Bowles.
We're going to honor.
Respectfully, there are many people who share lineage and racial affinity who do want to hear it. Yes.
I don't.
Right.
Thank you, Commissioner
And so
Favors.
what
I
we
don't
need
think
to
they
be
heard what I
clear
said.
about, and I'm happy to go through a racial resume for everybody. Thank you so much. However, if we want this hearing to move forward, there are protocols that we have to follow. While you may not agree with the content being shared, if you prevent it from being shared, we can't move forward. Feel free to have a dispute in the hall,
Let
but
me
in this
just add-
space, we're moving forward.
Folks,
Let me just add, when you speak, it actually reduces the amount of time that you will have to speak during the public hearing. No, because you're taking time. So why don't you let him have his minutes, and then you can have yours. That's how we're going to proceed. Thank you.
Okay.
let's try to go back.
All right. Thank you. All right. I'm going to continue here. While the origins of New York's black population are geographically diverse, they are united by a shared historical injury of human trafficking. Legal scholars like Kermit Roosevelt III, a grandson of a former New York governor and president of the United States, remind us that the United States Constitution itself, especially the 14th Amendment, has unused potential to support bold reparative justice. There is no law against reparations, only a lack of political imagination and, frankly, attention to the original statutory intent to implement them. In their recent amicus brief in the case challenging the Trump administration's executive order on birthright citizenship, historians Martha Jones and Kate Masur referred to the original challenge to expansive notions of civic belonging advanced by then non-citizen Africans in the antebellum U.S. We must center these assertions that fed what Manisha Sinha calls the Second U.S. Republic, or what we would call the Reconstruction era, many of them advanced by New Yorkers such as Henry Garnett, Fred Douglass, and the editors of the Anglo-American magazine, among others. The category black was born in a cultural and political response to the same settler colonial violence that both created whiteness and citizenship, and circumscribed remedies and repair primarily to race. Pursuing repair requires naming the system that produced the harm. As historian Ira Berlin has written in his book, The Long Emancipation, slavery was not just a labor regime, it was an undeclared asymmetrical war against African humanity. In his book, Born in Blackness, Howard French would include African polities as well, whose development as polities, as states in other words, was forestalled by the process which resulted in the formation of Western nation states. Further, reparationist Imari Abubakari Obadeli observes that the legal status of formerly captive Africans in the United States was not determined from within, but imposed externally with no plebiscite among the affected to determine their wishes. Unlike the Aboriginals, known as Native Americans, concepts of collective African personhood, like race or lineage, as counterposed against unfree labor status as one element among others for determining status, remain underexplored in American law and policymaking. Number three, accordingly, to backmap and inscribe nation-state status to African populations who suffered, and to separate them by the artificially imposed structures that facilitated their continuing exploitation, is both to engage in an unnecessary hampering legal fiction and to circumscribe reparative remedies to persons whose citizenship status becomes unnecessarily dispositive. Reparations must enhance not only material security in the form of addressing wealth disparities, it must, like the plain language of the same 14th Amendment that establishes birthright citizenship, center personhood, agency, and self-determination with no discriminatory distinction based on citizenship. This is a moment to think boldly. Pursuant to this line of thinking, it is useful to consider a few broad concepts that are especially relevant to defining eligibility beyond race and lineage as points of departure for exploring reparative relief for descendants of Africans for whom group identity as African captives can serve as a unifying categorization that further contextualizes the point of original harm requiring repair. And what was that point of original harm? It didn't happen on these shores. U.S. apartheid, Jim and Jane Crow, and structural and institutional racism can be established at the site of the initial harm, namely the initiation of trafficking by agents of European polities of human beings from the African continent. Entities responsible for this harm should not be restricted to polities and legal entities formed both parallel and subsequent to this original harm. Such an era extends rather than addresses the wrongs and traumas by unnecessarily precluding remedies that recognize both unique and common group circumstances. Demands for reparations and questions associated with those demands have been raised as a challenge to undertake structural modern social transformation since the colonial era. In other words, since before the transformation of Western settler colonies into nation states. Therefore, the essential guiding question at all levels of polity provided repair must again be, how do we decolonize the modern world? Polity level, including country level, regional state level, and local municipal level, repair efforts should not automatically preclude any form of remedy, and should be cognizant of the undermining of racially categorized remedies in federal and state law through several generations of narrowing post-civil rights era judicial interpretations of the federal Constitution and concomitant assaults on race-based remedies by changes in state constitutions. The original meaning of the U.S. Reconstruction Amendments supports the fact that race and lineage-based reparations efforts are not precluded. This could potentially allow us to imagine a legal status for African people more akin under federal and state constitutional law to that enjoyed by indigenous Americans and other discrete immigrants from other sovereign polities. Because the original harm of enslavement was carried out against African people in polities that predate Western nation states by distinct European nation states from which the current United States descends. Reparative justice presents as an opportunity to imagine new definitions of self-determination that can help decolonize modernity. Reparations in New York must be globally aware, legally bold and imaginative, and locally grounded. Eligibility for reparations must rest on two things. Number one, being part of the globally harmed African-descended community, and number two, being resident in New York. This is not about exclusion.
Let's not do that.
Oh, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I understand the trauma. It is about tracing and repairing harm. The systemic effects of that harm are real, as we see, and demonstrated in the work of this commission. It's documented in disparities in health, wealth, incarceration, land ownership, among other areas. I've been talking for 16 minutes. I'm going to finish these remarks very quickly.
Keep going, Dr. Carr.
No. I'm respecting the time. I appreciate y'all. Specific solutions. Some suggestions for reparative justice. Stemming from addressing injury areas for reparatory justice, and these are offered by the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, peoplehood, education, health, criminal punishment, and wealth poverty. Let me now offer some representative suggestions clustered into 4 basic proposal areas aligned with the 4 assertions discussed above. Number 1, restitution. Number 2, repair. Number 3, reconstruction. Number 4, non-repetition. Number 1, restitution. Transfer of wealth and land in the form of community land trusts and other forms of public-private partnerships, such as what we're seeing in Tulsa right now, as a form of equitable redistribution and resources to undergird economic development. Investment in affordable housing cooperatives in underserved and under-resourced neighborhoods, which, when analyzed strictly by economic class status, will over-index as historically Black. Support of cooperative business models and guaranteed income pilots for the most economically disadvantaged and at-risk families, which, when analyzed strictly by economic status, will over-index Black families. Now, you notice we're talking about trying to survive legal challenge, right? The mayor of Mayor of Montgomery, just saw him last week, Stephen Reed, talking about universal basic income and some things, but that's no secret. We talked about that a lot. Support of detailed lineage-based research, and we saw that on display today, in support of claims for compensation based on descent from those human trafficked in New York State, and the simultaneous creation of economic models that quantify the effect of race on the economic and political status of African people in New York State. Number two, no, they're both. Number two, it's called appositional logic, both and, not oppositional, either or. Number two, repair. Expand access to mental health services, culturally grounded health care, and trauma-informed care in communities with legacies of incarceration and displacement. Fund established community institutions, educational and cultural centers, clinics, arts centers, libraries, and other things, rooted in African and Afro-diasporic healing traditions, as well as ensure the financial support for public institutions is distributed in ways which represent the demographic plurality of cultures of New York State. Number three of the four, reconstruction. Public education that includes accurate world, U.S., hemispheric, African, and African diaspora history, including the role of New York in the United States and global human trafficking and its afterlives. Support existing museums and memorials and new ones, not just in Manhattan, but in Brooklyn, Syracuse, Rochester, everywhere that history has been misrepresented through exclusion and silences. There is no single New York or U.S. narrative. Asserting that there is itself an act of white supremacy. Compile and publish the systematic evidence to buttress ongoing reparations and restorative justice claims, continuing into tradition pioneered by New York residents such as, for a time at Hunter College, the late Pauli Murray. And then number four, non-repetition. Recognize New York's unparalleled advantage in order to strengthen Afro-diasporic cultural institutions and independent Black media. We saw that again on display a moment ago. Fund public-private partnerships between higher education institutions and both HBCUs and MSIs like Medgar College to train the next generation of Black educators, professionals, historians, and healers. These schools should form a global think tank network for reparatory justice that leverages New York City as the home of unique institutional resources for the global reparations movement. Drawing from New York's long history of experimentation with community control, establish and/or support existing autonomous community review boards with real authority in education, public safety, and health. I just got two more paragraphs. I went over by a minute, so let me do this. I know. The legal challenge and opportunity. We know that reparations will face legal challenges. If the last several decades have revealed nothing else in jurisprudence, it is that constitutional and statutory interpretation is not impervious to political pressure, and that readings and misreadings of U.S. history are used as a weapon to reduce precedent and stare decisis to secondary roles. As Professor Roosevelt and others argue, the Reconstruction Amendments were designed for reparations in part. We must not allow narrow and ahistorical interpretations of equal protection to become shields for injustice, no matter how successful the efforts of racial ideologues have been over the last two generations to obscure the clear meaning of those amendments. Instead, New York should lead a national effort to reinterpret the Constitution as a living document of liberation. Finally, let us remember that on January the 7th, 1861, shortly after South Carolina had seceded from the Union, New York City Mayor Fernando Wood suggested, given New York's economic dependence on materials produced and markets enhanced by Africans in the United States South, that the city should declare its independence from the North and the South. Yep. well, declare their independence from the North and the South, because they were going to run the whole thing through Charleston, the Confederate States of America. And they may still do it, because I don't know if this country is going to be here in the next 50 years. 3 months later, hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers would rally in the city to reinforce their commitment to the Union. These two acts were moments of the practice of democracy, as were both the sacrifice of thousands of New Yorkers, including new arrivals and many of African descent, who fought both for the Union and, as in the case of newly minted whites in the 1863 draft riots, for anti-black violence. Today, New York is being called to again choose the right side of history. The call for repair is not about division, it's about vision. Reparations are not just a set of policy recommendations, they are a mirror and a map. A mirror of what we have done and a map of where we can go if we choose justice. New York has always been a gateway. Now let it be a gateway to repair. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Carr. Listen, I want to acknowledge that we certainly, as we've shared many times, we understand that this conversation is emotional. But it's important that when we have these public hearings, that we are respectful. And so we certainly are not going to agree with everyone, but we need to be respectful. And so we certainly, if you all have the right, if you don't agree, you can stay or you can leave. But this is certainly a place where we want to honor the people that we have presented for you today. And so here is how we're going to communicate. I think it's time for us to do that. And the longer we go back and forth, the less time you have. And so this is a public hearing, but in this place, we need to be respectful. It's not a call and response situation. It is a place this commission picked these experts to help educate us and to help educate the community. And so we're going to continue on. So let's talk about how we'll communicate. Let me pause and go there. So how we will communicate to ensure this forum remains respectful and action-oriented space, we will ask all attendees to honor and follow the ground rules of how we communicate. And we're asking that you respect every voice. Every person here has the right to speak and be heard, and you will have your time to do that. But we're asking that you please listen actively and allow space for different perspectives. We want to center solutions and not just frustration. As I just said earlier, this is an emotional conversation, and feelings of anger, grief, and urgency are certainly valid. But we want to channel those emotions into actionable solutions. And if you have those, you'll have your time to speak and share that at the public hearing portion. We ask that there be no personal attacks or hate speech. Passion is certainly welcome, but hostility is not. And so we want to uplift and not tear down. Disrespectful language, threats, or personal attacks will not be tolerated. We want to honor time and space and be sure that all voices are heard, and be mindful of the time when you're speaking. If you are participating in the public hearing segment, we ask that you limit your remarks to the designated time. We want you to stay present and engaged, and we're all here to learn, to grow, and hopefully take some action. This is our time, New York, and I'm so glad that you all here are passionate and here to make some change. So please avoid disruptions, and if emotions arise, take the time to breathe, to step aside, or step outside. We thank you for being part of this conversation. Give yourselves a round of applause for being here. And so we do have another presentation, and then we're not going to skip Q&A and get right to the public hearing section. And so I want to take time to honor the next speaker. Again, thank you all for being here. But we do have a fourth speaker, and we're going to honor that speaker. And so we have our final speaker is Dr. Raymond Winbush. Dr. Winbush. He is the director of the Institute for Urban Research at Morgan State University. Dr. Winbush earned his PhD in psychology from the University of Chicago and received numerous teaching awards throughout his career at Oakwood, Alabama A&M, Vanderbilt, and Fisk University. Dr. Winbush is the author of numerous articles and published 4 books. He has written extensively on the struggle for Black people for reparations because of the trans-European enslavement of Africans. Dr. Winbush was the senior researcher on the Academy Award-winning film Judas and the Black Messiah, produced by Ryan Coogler, director of Black Panther and Sinners. Dr. Winbush has lectured globally on the contributions of Africans to world culture, and I am honored that he joined us today. Please honor and welcome Dr. Raymond Winbush.
Well, well, well. To the commissioner, thank you for inviting me to this. This is very important. I bring you greetings from Baltimore, Maryland, where I teach at Morgan State. If you like sports, we gave the world Jim Brown. If you like music, we gave the world Denise Williams. Y'all know who Denise Williams is? Okay. If you like business, we gave the world Earl Graves, the founder of Black Enterprise magazine. If you like politics, we gave the world Kwesi Mfume. But our greatest gift was a sister who graduated there in 1918 from our high school by the name of Zora Neale Hurston. You have to read Their Eyes Were Watching God. You know, I'm tempted to stray from my script, but I'm gonna stick to what I brought up here. Let's just go to the, okay. So I'm going to talk about from Wall Street to Harlem. The legacy of slavery and racism in New York is long, as we've heard already. Okay. New York's role in slavery has often been overlooked. My colleagues outlined the fact that Brooklyn was one of the largest slave-holding places in this entire nation. And Wall Street was built literally and economically on the black backs of enslaved Africans. Harlem represents a cultural hub that still struggles with systemic racism today. So slavery on Wall Street, we outlined already 1626. This book is one of the best books you can read on slavery in New York, and I'm sure the commissioners already have that. In 1711, New York City establishes a slave market on Wall Street and Pearl Street. Go there, that is sacred ground. Wall Street was a center of human trafficking. We've heard that too. And these two guys, you know, this is J.P. Morgan. Okay, and we could go in there. Is Roger and Roger Wareham here? Where you at, Raj? Okay, okay. That brother right there knows more about reparations than I think, you know, than anybody I know. Slavery was involved not only in banking, but in insurance as well. New York Life, how many of you hold New York Life policies? Several of you. And these people have to be dealt with. Nadia Hippolyte right here, and I did some research about a year ago, and we've and still working on it, but we have a formula for dealing specifically with reparations, because that's a major thing that you have to deal with. We have reparations in Baltimore. The commission in Baltimore has approximately $25 million. By the end of 2026, the commission will hold roughly $100 million, which will be distributed to the African community in Baltimore, Maryland. We also have a state legislature. We have a state legislature where the Senate passed a bill on reparations, the House passed a bill on reparations, but the governor, the only black governor in the the entire United States vetoed a state representation and a state commission on reparations. And we're talking about overturning that. That's another discussion. Let me stick to this. So there's a gradual abolition, as we know, that took place beginning in 1799, with full abolition taking place in 1827. You should read about the Lemon slave decision. How many of you have heard of the Lemon slave decision? Okay, good. This couple was in Richmond, Virginia, white couple, and they owned 8 enslaved Africans. 6 of them were children. They decided that they were going to move to Texas, came to New York to catch a ship around the Florida coast to Texas. And while they were in New York, because at that time, anybody who traveled to New York who was enslaved was automatically free. They fought the decision and lost. The Lemon decision is a very important decision for the commission to know about. Very, very important. Read about that. So the Great Migration, you know about that, the Harlem Renaissance from the early 1900s, migration from the South to the Harlem cultural boom, you know all about that. I'm not going to repeat this. But this is what I want to stress right here. There's racism in Harlem today. Did you know that? And the form, and exactly, the form of racism, and I'm gonna just say this, you know, every time I come to Harlem, it gets whiter and whiter. Thank you, sister. And that's the issue, is gentrification. And it's not only occurring in Harlem, it's occurring in Baltimore, wherever you see large pockets of black folk, especially in strategic places by museums, by transportation and housing, you see gentrification. We're fighting it in Baltimore. But this is the statistic that I want you to know about. Harlem rent has doubled since the early 2000s, doubled. Black residents are being displaced, you already know that, and the historical cultural spaces are vanishing in this. And this is my last slide. I'm going to be the shortest presenter tonight. Local groups such as the December 12th movement are fighting displacement. Museums and centers should be preserving history, which they are, and calls for reparations and justice should continue. And my conclusion, Wall Street slavery roots are shaped New York City. Harlem still faces effects of systemic racism. Education. Is Yah Santawa in the audience? I'm back here. Where you at? I'm back here. This sister knows more about black education than anybody in this audience, I tell, including me. And she helped with the research that Nadia and I did. Give her a hand. And was actually dismissed from the Brooklyn public school systems when I was teaching at Fisk University. We supported her because the children referred to themselves as Africans. She told them that they were Africans, and she was dismissed because of that. But that's a whole nother discussion as well. Okay, I'm getting ready to leave the stage, and I'm glad I did not get booed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Winbush. We are so grateful for all of our presenters. We won't have time for a Q&A, so I'm going to ask that they just drop the presentation for a second. We're going to take a 5-minute break. We're not going to take the 10-minute break. We won't have the Q&A. This puts us back on time, and then we'll begin our public hearing. If you have not signed up, please sign up. We're excited. I want everyone to do us a favor, because this work is so important, and we need people to know about the commission throughout New York State, not just you all. So if you all don't mind following the commission on Instagram and Facebook so that we can have more individuals on the learning about the commission, visiting our website, and watching public hearings. So follow the commission. I'd appreciate that. We are on Instagram, and we are at NYSCCRR. That's New York State Community Commission for Reparation Remedies, NYSCCRR. If you can take out your phones and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. So we are going to take a quick even though it says 10 minutes, we are just going to take 5 minutes. It's 6:16 right now. We'll see you all in 5 minutes, or don't go anywhere, but we want to just make sure we transition. Thank you all for being here. Come back, and if you haven't signed up, please do.
Okay, if you all can take your seats, we're going to be starting again. If everyone can take your seats. If you're having a conversation that cannot be ended right now, please step outside to continue that conversation. We are going to recommence the hearing so that you all can share your public testimony. Please take your seats.
I tried. But I need them all to move so we can put the mics back. Where do you want Ms. A.P. Richardson and Poet Mills?
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. We are ready to get started. We thank you all for being here. We're going to have all our commissioners come back to the table so we can begin our public hearing. Before we begin, we want to acknowledge that you're here. We thank you for being here. If you have a conversation that's really important, you can take it outside. If you can take your conversations outside. We know you all want to catch up, but we're in Harlem, and we're at the Schomburg, and our time is limited. So if you're not here for the public hearing and you want to just go ahead and connect outside, please do so. But right now, it's time for the hearing. So we thank you all for being here. We want to honor the conversations, but we also want to point you to the legislation. Is everybody with me? Thank you. Thank you all for settling down so that the commission is here. You all came here to be part of the commission. We want to get started because we've got 43 people registered to speak, and we want to make sure that we have room for that. But we also want to remind you of the legislation. We've heard many times at the public hearings that the legislation should look a certain way. We, the commission, the New York State Commission for Reparations Remedies, we are following the legislation. And so I'm going to ask Commissioner Daniel Favor if she could please remind us of the charge for the New York State Community Commission for Reparations Remedies.
Good evening again, everybody. Thank you once again for being with us. If you may not have a physical copy, but if you go to our website, you will be able to download the entire text of the legislation that describes this process, what is to happen during this process, and our charge as commissioners. Our charge as commissioners is found in Section B. You can find this about midway down through page 5. I'm sorry, Section 3, Subpart B. And the legislation reads as follows. Well, let me find the right spot. Okay, here we go. The commission shall perform the following duties. Number 1, examine the institution of slavery which existed within the state of New York and in the city of New York. The commission's examination shall include, but not be limited to, an examination of A, the capture and procurement of Africans, B, the transport of Africans to what is now known as New York City and New York State for the purpose of enslavement, including their treatment during transport. C, the sale and acquisition of Africans as chattel property in interstate and intrastate commerce, including the direct and indirect benefits that New York received from these economic relationships. D, the treatment of enslaved Africans in the city of New York and the state of New York, including the deprivation of their freedom, exploitation of their labor, and destruction of their culture, language, religion, and families. And E, the treatment of formerly enslaved Africans and their descendants in the city of New York and the state of New York during the period between the Civil War and present. Number 2, we are to examine the extent to which the federal government, as well as the state and local governments of New York, supported the institution of slavery, including the extent to which such governments prevented, opposed, or restricted efforts of freed enslaved Africans to repatriate to their homeland. Examine how New York State engaged in the interstate transfer of enslaved Africans and carried out federal policies in the furtherance of slavery. Examine the de jure and de facto discrimination against freed enslaved Africans, their descendants, and people of African descent generally at both the state and federal levels of government during the period between the end of the Civil War and the present, including, but not limited to, economic, political, educational, and social discrimination. Examine the lingering negative effects of the institution of slavery and discrimination on living people of African descent and on society in the state of New York. Examine the current conditions of living people of African descent in the state of New York to the extent practicable, including but not limited to economic, political, educational, and social conditions. Recommend appropriate ways to educate the public of the Commission's findings. Recommend appropriate remedies and reparations in considerations of the Commission's findings on the matters described previously in paragraphs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 of this subdivision. That paragraph continues. And finally, number 9, examine the feasibility for the creation of a bureau to assist in the distribution and administration of remedies and reparations as recommended by the Commission pursuant to paragraphs 8 of this subdivision. We will then provide a report to the legislature. At that point, members of the New York State Assembly and the New York State Senate will review the report and will vote on whether they will pass that report and its findings into law. It is very important that as members of the community, there are things that we can do as a commission and things that you all can do as a community. As a community, you can reach out to your New York State Assembly members and senators to tell them that you are either in favor or opposed to the recommendation remedies that we will produce. You can lobby your elected officials because we, the people, have to be our own lobby. However, this commission is limited to the language described in this document. If you believe that there are other ways of approaching this topic, you are perfectly free to pursue those ways. And that could include legislatively, it can include advocacy. And because I'm not speaking just to the person who got it, I'm going to continue because we do things in decency and in order, always. And so you have the capacity to then communicate as grassroots, as members of organizations, as collectives, as individuals, as to what it is you wish to see happen with this legislation. This body is bound by this document, and I look forward to hearing from the testimony, and our chair will provide information on what that testimony will look like.
Thank you, Commissioner Daniel Favors. So first we have 2 invited testimony speakers. I'd like to bring to the stage Senior Vice President of the National Urban League, Jerica Richardson, to the microphone. Thank you, Jerica, for being here today. As Jerica comes to the podium, I just want to remind folks or share with you that testimony for those that have signed up, there are 2 microphones in the back. What I will do is I will call 3 names. So when I call the 3 names, if you can come to the microphone already prepared so there's no waiting time, and then we'll continue and we'll keep that cadence, okay? All right. Thank you, Jerica Richardson, for being here.
Thank you. And good evening, esteemed members of the New York State Community Commission on Reparations Remedies, colleagues and guests. My name is Jerica Richardson, and I serve as the Senior Vice President for Equitable Justice and Strategic Initiatives at the National Urban League. I'm honored to join you today to express both personal and institutional support for reparations and repair, not just in principle, but as a moral and practical imperative at the federal, state, and local levels. I bring these remarks as a descendant of American chattel slavery. My own family survived the 1923 terror attack on Black residents in Catcher, Arkansas, one of countless violent attempts that suppressed Black economic and social progress. I also bring remarks on behalf of the National Urban League, our 92 affiliate organizations across this country, and our president and CEO, Mark H. Morial, all of whom remain steadfast in our commitment to truth, justice, and reparation. The National Urban League was founded, as many of you know, in 1910 right here in Harlem, just blocks from where we stand today. The League was established to support Black Americans who were subjected to terrorism by groups like the Ku Klux Klan and other violent forces. This year, we return home to Harlem, not just as a symbol, but as a powerful statement that our mission endures and our roots continue to ground us and guide us. I'd like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to this commission, and especially to Dr. Shawnell Hawkins for her visionary leadership as chair. Dr. Hawkins' dual role as chair and president and CEO of the Urban League of Rochester powerfully demonstrates the importance of connecting policy leadership with community-rooted action. And so I know we're all here to talk about action, so I just thank you all for coming here tonight, because action is what is needed, not just here in New York, but needed across this country. The National Urban League has long championed reparations and the pursuit of reparative justice. Our support spans federal, state, and local levels, and we have actively supported legislative efforts, including H.R. 40. We have also mobilized our affiliates to push for state and municipal reparations initiatives, understanding that justice must be pursued wherever we have the opportunity to make progress. We know that the legacy of slavery, segregation, redlining, mass incarceration, and systemic economic exclusion continues unto this very day. Even after so-called recovery periods, Black unemployment is consistently double that of whites. Black home ownership is at its lowest level in 50 years, and Black families are more likely to lack access to quality education, health care, and generational wealth-building tools. Today, we face not only the residue of historic harm, but also new and active roadblocks to diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, cuts to social safety nets, and budget proposals that threaten to undo the modest progress we've made thus far. These benefits were never luxuries for us. They served as life preservers for communities long denied of equal opportunity. And we are in a moment, folks, that calls for bold, comprehensive solutions. Some may believe that New York was a free state, untouched by the horrors of slavery. But let me tell you, the reality is quite different. You saw some of that in these presentations today. In 1730, 42% of New York households owned enslaved people, a rate second only to Charleston, South Carolina. Enslaved Africans built the very infrastructure of New York City, from Fort Amsterdam to the Wall on Wall Street. They were the backbone of a thriving colonial economy. Even after slavery was formally abolished, New York continued to profit from the illegal international slave trade, supplying enslaved people to the American South, Brazil, and Cuba. It did not stop. Major financial institutions, including Aetna, New York Life, J.P. Morgan Chase, all directly profited from this exploitation. And as I wrap, I just want to say this system enriched white citizens and helped transform New York into the global financial and cultural capital it is today. So reparations can and must take multiple forms, but at their core, they must address the financial and systemic harm done to Black Americans, whether it's direct payment.
You know how much I appreciate you, but we have to respect all of the other people.
Understood.
And so
Understood.
I'm sorry. You know how I feel about you.
Understood. So thank you all for this opportunity.
Thank you.
It was submitted. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerica Richardson. Next, we're going to have Mr. David Mills. He is an author, educator, and poet. He is next. And we're going to have to implement a 2-minute time frame so that we can make sure that we make room for all 43 voices. So we apologize, 46 voices. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, panel, and thank you, audience. So I have a collection of poems called Bone Yarn, which is about slavery in Manhattan. I'll read 2 poems. They're both about the 1712 insurrection. There were 24 participants, mostly enslaved Africans, but also Spanish Negroes and some Native Americans. This first piece is called Witch 2. There were 3 enslaved women who participated, Sarah, Abigail, and Lily. Between Sarah and Abigail, one of them was pregnant. They captured her, imprisoned her in the slave dungeon below City Hall, which is where the mayor lived, kept her alive until she gave birth, and then hung her on the Commons. There's a reference to the stones that were used from the wall that built Wall Street that was 90% built by African enslaved individuals. The first half of the poem refers to a lot of legal diction. The second half refers to birthing. A necessary tub was a bucket they put in the dungeon with her where she went to the bathroom, and they didn't take it out for the 3 months. Woolsey is a cheap wool that was given to our ancestors to make clothes in the winter. As far as I understand, women in their 3rd trimester lie on their left side to relieve the pain. Witch 2, split flash, and it's lost to history whether it was Sarah or Abigail. In a pinched and dank corner cell at the corner of Wall and Broad, without interrogation or constitution, beneath rulings and arches, 4 dials on a clock, beneath arguments and archives, petite juries and Supreme Court, beneath criers and bailiffs, peals and flutters, beneath bells and constables and birds and cupolas, beneath perches and deputies, whipping posts and small talk, beneath windows and gilt, wainscot and lawyers, beneath deep thought and bench wigs, warrants and decorum, beneath 2 floors and black robes, conviction and hand-wringing, beneath plaintiffs and gavels, punishment and appeal, beneath charge and indictment, a hung head's arrest, beneath a trial and its rumors, before acquittal and pardon, there's a case and its verdict before a judge and one's peers, beneath sentences and pillory, evidence and stairwells, between wrongdoing and wrong done and who's right and what's wrong, the City Hall dungeon, where in darkness lies a woman with child. So no question of where labor, but when labor, what labor? Slave? Slave who labor even in labor. Sarah or Abigail, who is dying to lie on her left side, shackled to staples with staples affixed to history. Stone slaves once quarried to build a wall boiled down to a street. Which one's water break? Which one gush or trickle? Damp to the woolsey, sweet to the nose. How hard, when tender, abdomen, when hard, how tender, uterus, ache, how dull, shackled to the staple, to the bolted, to the agony, stone slaves once used to build, pressure, pelvis, how long, when is during between, what is between enduring, the stench of a necessary tub, contractions, waves are water's pushy guests. 45 seconds or so, which one's still talking? Maybe one, shackled to the staple, to the bolted, to the memory, stone slaves once used. Maybe 15 minutes later, maybe one, maybe a minute or 2 later, or half a minute longer, stretch marks, silence. Which one's stomach is a punch, clenched, a fist? Breathe into the lower back, into the ache, knowing you got not even a sip of say-so over your captor's shoe music composed on the floor above you, shackled to the staple, to the bolted, to these echoes.
Thank you, Mr. David Mills. We won't have time for 2, unfortunately. but we want to honor your work and thank you for being here. And if you can submit that, if you don't mind calling our number 518-473-3997, we love to capture that and put that on our website. So thank you. We want to thank you for being here today, and we apologize to everyone for the abbreviated time, but we want to make sure that we have room for all 46. So thank you again to Jerica Richardson for being here and David Mills. Please give them a round of applause. Yes. We have to leave here at 8 o'clock, and so we have to honor that. We thank you for being at the Schomburg. If I mispronounce your name, I apologize. So I want to have Nadia Hippolyte go to the back of the room, Daryl Edwards, and Herman Melvin Francis Jr. You are up next. For public testimony, you have 2 minutes. There'll be a timer, and thank you. So we want to honor the Schomburg, and we thank them for being here, for allowing us to be here with you, but we have until 8 p.m. So if you could please share your name and with the organization or who you represent, and then begin. Thank you.
Hello? Oh, okay, it's on. Hello, my name is Nadia Hippolyte. I'm part of First World Collaborative with Dr. Raymond Wimbush. We do reparations research and look at holding institutions accountable for the benefits of enslaving African people and maintaining the system of white supremacy. So I want to talk about the wealth disparities that exist between Black and white people. These were activities that maintained the disenfranchisement of Black people, as well as maintain the disenfranchisement that we have currently. Confiscation of land, redlining by banks, denial of business loans, and other forms of racism. African American was forced into poverty through enslavement, Jim Crow, and to continue to experience discrimination in employment, housing, and other economic areas. If we're going to talk about reparations, we have to talk about how do we rectify all aspects of discrimination that we experience as Black people in totality. They don't say, oh, you're a new Black person to this country, so you don't have to go through discrimination. You're going to be hired. You're going to get homes. We don't. So when we're talking about how do we fix these institutions, we have to talk about how do we fix it so that Black people have the ease and the ability to survive in this system of white supremacy. And how do we end the system of white supremacy?
Thank you, Ms. Hippolyte. We thank you for your time. Next is going to be, as you prepare, Daryl Edwards and Herman Melvin Francis Jr. We're going to have Margarita Benedict, Tamara Tillman, and William Harvey get ready. So Daryl Edwards, are you here?
Hello. Thank you, panel. My name is Daryl Edwards. I represent United States Freedmen Project and also BANF, Black American Negro Freedmen. And I'm here to do my testimony real quick. I'm never really long, so I don't really need 2 minutes. Make it real quick. I'm not Black. I'm not Black. I know Black. That's what Africans, Caribbeans, Jamaicans, and a bunch of dark-skinned people tell Black Americans when they hit this soil. They should not be included in our reparations at all. Africans sold us. Why are they being included in our reparations? Immigrants displace Black Americans in all forms. They bring racism and drugs into the community. Every turn of the century, every 10 years, when a new group comes in, a new drug comes with them. Look up that. There's an Office of New Americans for Africans and other programs specifically for them. And you calling us Africans is white supremacy. Stop calling us Africans. And reparations must be broken down by different timings. First, for the people that's human trafficked, maybe two for the people that's worked in New York, and the generations of harm. And all of those do not include no immigrants. Those are all, and people, if you talk about some people, human trafficking, that's a whole separate claim. Keep it to Black Americans. And I'm gonna land right there. Thank you. My name is Fish and Grits. I'm out.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Herman Melvin Francis Jr., and hopefully Margarita Benedict, Tamara Tillman, and William Harvey are preparing.
Greetings, everyone. It warms the heart when the cause is just, and hearts gets even warm when the people come together. Nationalism is nationalism is nationalism. The Willie Lip Syndrome is alive and well, and as a firm believer in solutions, all you gotta do is look at Frederick Douglass and his speech on July 5th, 1852 in Rochester, New York. What does your 4th of July, which day is coming up, mean to the United States of North America slaves? Because people come to the United States of North America for one reason only, the War of 1861 to 1865. Where it was laid the groundwork for the 13th, 14th, 15th, and 19th Amendment, and also Executive Order 9981. As one who got drafted 56 years ago by the United States military, what does Executive Order 9981 mean? Well, when you read it, you will come across a name that's not exactly household, Sergeant Isaac Woodard, who was going home to his wife after being discharged from the U.S. military in 1946. And on that Greyhound bus, when nature called, and the white bus driver called the police, and the sheriff shot at one of his deputies. And the next thing Sergeant Isaac Wood realized, he was waking up in the local jail, blind in both eyes. So when President Truman signed the executive order, keep in mind, this is something that FDR did not sign. The executive order in 1948, July 26th, it was for one reason only, to integrate and desegregate the United States military. And when you look at that, then you understand why New York City integrated its school system in 1873. The U.S. government is acting in a conspiracy right now. The only way we're going to fight that's a firm solution is do what Charles Hamilton Houston said. The attorney must be a socialist here, otherwise the attorney is a parasite. Every case needs new ground. Take it to federal court and let them fight it out in there.
Thank you. Can you confirm that you are Mr. Herman Melvin Francis Jr.? Thank you. Thank you. If you all can just introduce yourselves, we're capturing this testimony. Just say your name. That's it. Margarita Benedict, you're next, and then Tamara Tillman and William Harvey. After that will be Mary Carolyn Ross, Judy Smith, and Isaiah Hines.
Muy buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Margarita Benedict. Soy hondureña. Trabajé 13 años en este país de home attendant de 24 horas. Y solo le pagan a uno 13 horas, 11 horas de turno de 24 horas. Ya es tiempo que estos turnos de 24 horas se terminen. Hay que poner mano en eso porque eso es racismo. Eso no es bueno para la salud. Yo llegué aquí joven, bien de salud y todo, pero ahora tengo que usar un bastón para poderme mover. Entonces, esto es desgastante. Estar en casa ajena 24 horas, como que si uno fuera presidiario, pagando una cuenta que uno no debe. Por favor, a las autoridades de este país que eliminen ese trabajo de 24 horas. Por favor, mil gracias.
Gracias, Margarita. Next is Tamara Tillman.
Not open. Is it on?
It's
okay,
on.
It's on now.
One second.
All right.
Executive Director, Madam Chair, the Executive Director.
Translate.
I apologize.
It's okay. My name is Margarita Benedict. I'm a home care worker, and I'm with the campaign No More 24. In 13 years I've worked as a home care worker, the agencies have never assigned me anything other than 24-hour shifts. Through the years of working as a home care attendant, I have never protested these abusive shifts, for fear was the reason. I was driven solely to desire to work for my children, and I did everything possible to bring them to the US to have a better life. As a Black Garifuna woman, I say the 24-hour shifts are racist and violent to our bodies. These agencies don't value our lives. They pay us only for 13 of the 24-hour shifts. They profit from the damage and they take advantage because we are Black, immigrants, and/or women. They take advantage of our situation.
Thank you. You can submit your testimony. If you're out of time, you can submit your testimony on our website at ny.gov/reparations, or you can call in right now at 518-473-3997. Next is Tamara William, and we thank you.
I'm Tamara Tillman, AKA MC Shorty T. I'm a hip hop pioneer from Queens, 1976. What I would like to say about the Commission of Reparations, from my understanding, it's only for enslaved people in New York. The legislation needs to be modified because I have descendants that came from the South. My parents migrated in the 50s to New York and started domestic work and porter work as well. I was born here in New York. And as I stand before you, I stand with complex trauma. This commission needs to address not only white supremacy, but the supremacy, the racism within us. Because I lost my daughter in 2017 because of a lineage line and ancestral curse of mental illness. The brother talked about how we have to have mental health in our communities. I was born and raised in Queens, but I own a house in Brownsville, Brooklyn. I am the guardian of 2 special need children of my daughter that she died in front of. And the New York State, everyone has dropped the ball. They dropped the ball on me at the age of 13. My mom had numerous amount of nervous breakdowns, and she was a patient at Creemore, leading to me to leave home at 13. I'm a CA survivor, I'm an SA survivor, I'm a hip-hop pioneer, and I'm a grandmother that's struggling, that I have to stand on the pantry lines or sit because I have an injury, because I once was an employee for the New York City Department of Social Services. But because of my stance, and I've always had to advocate for myself, I was ostracized. So we definitely need to address the racism within.
Thank you, Ms. Tillman. Now, we just want to let you know that the legislation does include you. If you all want to see the legislation, you can go to our website at ny.gov/reparations, but you are included in the legislation. So thank you, Shorty T. Next, we have William Harvey, if he would be prepared to come up, and then we have Mary Carolyn Ross, Judy Smith, and Isaiah Hines.
Good afternoon. My name is William Harvey. I'm the president of the Organization of Pan-African Unity. While you are dealing with reparations in New York State, we're dealing with reparations from Africa because it takes 2 to tango, 1 sold and 1 purchased. We have devised a court order to have all of those African presidents arrested and charged with fratricide for selling our people right now. Now, all of these young men you see riding these bicycles, delivering lunch to people all over New York City, those are the new slaves. They have been sold by their own governments and deported to the United States to work and make money to send remittances back home. And we're not doing anything about it. And there's thousands of them coming. So if you deal with slavery, it's not over. And we need to get back on track. So while you're dealing with New York State reparations, we're dealing with African reparations from the people who sold us.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. And if you haven't completed your testimony, you can go to the website. Next is Mary Carolyn Ross. And if Chantel Williams, Ms. Moses Harper, and Annette Wilcox can prepare, we'd appreciate that. Please provide your name before speaking. Mary Carolyn Ross, you're next.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I know you can hear. Can hear me now. All right, the reparation needs to be extended to other. The reparation needs to be extended other places, not just in New York State, because this took place now in New York State, not only in New York State, but also in New Orleans, Louisiana. My daughter and I worked our fingers to the bone getting a library. I am a librarian, getting a library ready for automation, checking out books by computer. It meant revising thousands of the old-fashioned catalog card, getting information. We worked our fingers to the bone, not only during the day, but at night. I gave up evenings for which I was not paid. My daughter and I worked like dogs for months. And by the time the place was made ready, and I saw to it that several thousands of records of books were ready to be converted for automation, my daughter and I were weeping about the fact that I was removed with no reason. I was removed from my position. I was fired, and the position was given to somebody who does not look like me. That's all I have to say. It was a living disgrace and unfair. I call for reparation for people who look like me or minorities, not to be used the way I was used and taken advantage of. And at the age of 91 in September, which I will be, the reparation is long, long overdue. I want to live to see it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ross. We honor you, and we thank you for being here with us and sharing your testimony. Next is Judy Smith and Isaiah Hines.
Okay. My name is Judith Smith, and this reparations is for the Americans who are the descendants of the American slaves. And I just want to say that I just want to make a suggestion. You have a lot of civil service workers living in public housing, and the government is talking about privatizing public housing. And you have some of us descendants living there 30, 40, 50 years. They can give us our apartments for reparations. Instead of giving it to a real estate developer, they could give it to us, or they could sell it to us for a low price, right? So that's one of the suggestions I would like to make. And it should be income limits, because it's about building wealth. Some of us have made it, but the ones that are left behind, those are the ones that we need to reach out to and help them get up on their feet and build wealth. Maybe you can put in a financial education for them so they can learn how to build wealth, because they have stolen from us. We didn't get our 40 acres and a mule. And all through Jim Crow, they denied our ancestors education and the knowledge to build wealth. And if they didn't deny him, then we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be struggling the way we are. So yes, they owe it to us. We're tired of them kicking the can down the road, because they've been doing this for 60 years. And it's time to get it settled.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. We appreciate your actionable solutions. Next, we have Judy Smith. Is Judy Smith here? I'm sorry, Ms. Smith. I'm sorry. Isaiah Hines is next. I apologize.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. My name is Isaiah Hines. I'm a poet and a PhD student at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in Troy, New York. My family is from New York City by way of Georgia. My mom was born here in Manhattan in Beth Israel Hospital, and my dad was born in Brooklyn. I'm a descendant of enslaved Africans on both sides. My maternal grandfather was born in Riceboro, Georgia in 1940. So I'm 26, and my grandfather was born without equal rights in this country. And additionally, my great-great-grandfather died on the street right outside of this building, actually 100 years ago. He was hit by a car here in Harlem where he lived, or something happened to him, and he was brought to Harlem Hospital, which was in the process of being desegregated, and they denied him admission, they denied him treatment. He was not allowed into the hospital, and he ended up dying on the street there. And so even though the hospital was technically desegregating, he still was refused treatment. A lot of these stories are preserved by family story keepers and might lack physical documentary evidence. And so honoring those stories is something to consider, and I'm sure you are already. Additionally, I'm conducting research on repair in the Reparations Commission here in New York, and I'm studying the narratives and the stories that are circulating here at the meetings. So I would love to speak to any of you if you've attended meetings, if you've given testimony. I'm going to be writing an article that hopefully will be useful to the commissioners and will hopefully be useful to the public also. So you can come find me at the meeting, look me up. My name is Isaiah Hines. I'd be happy to talk to you.
Thank you, Mr. Hines, and good luck with your research. Next, we have Chantel Williams, Mr. Moses Harper, and Annette Wilcox. And as they prepare, next we'll have Aisha Smith, Tanisha Grant, and Don Greer.
Good evening, members of the New York State Reparations Commission. My name is Chantel Williams, and I represent the New York Civil Liberties Union Racial Justice Center. The Racial Justice Center advocates at the intersection of racism and key justice issues, including environmental justice, educational equity, indigenous justice, and Black restorative practices. For centuries, Black voices in New York have been deliberately silenced, silenced by law, silenced by violence, silenced to preserve a racial hierarchy. During slavery, Black people were not permitted to testify against white people. Their voices rendered illegal by the slave codes of 1702. It was a system explicitly designed to erase Black truth and subjugate Black lives. Even after slavery was formally abolished in New York in 1827, the silencing continued. Under the Fugitive Slave Act, Black New Yorkers accused of being runaways were denied the right to speak in their own defense. Black witnesses were also barred. Take the case of Abraham Gosley, a free Black man living in Manhattan in 1836. He had 3 Black witnesses ready to testify that he had lived in New York prior to the date of his alleged escape. He even had a sworn affidavit from a courthouse in Maryland affirming he was free. None of it mattered. Judge Richard Riker, the namesake of Rikers Island, ignored all of the facts. Gosley was sent into slavery. His voice was erased. This pattern of silencing Black New Yorkers through state-sanctioned laws and policies continued into the 20th and 21st century. In 1964, an off-duty officer shot and killed 15-year-old James Powell. When Harlem rioted in response, the city responded not with justice, but with tear gas and mass arrests and silenced Black New Yorkers. Today, the silencing continues through over-policing, wrongful convictions, and a legal system still unwilling to hear Black truth. This was demonstrated by NYPD's violent response to 2020 racial justice protests. The commission must strengthen its civilian complaint review boards, bring change to prosecutorial discovery practice, and create a reparations fund for survivors.
You can finish your testimony at 518-473-3997. We appreciate you being here. Next, we have Ms. Moses Harper and Annette Wilcox.
Is it on now? Okay. Hi, my name is Moses Harper. I'm a 21-degree creative, and I'm also the CEO of Rock Leadership Consulting. Me and my team have made thousands of trips inside of prisons and jails, and also working with young people. I've been doing this work personally for over 34 years, and I've been studying for over 44 years. teaching young people that 1,900 acres of what is now Morrisania was a plantation run by Lewis Morrison, who made sure the slaves there were picking the corn, the wheat, and the potatoes that was being sent down to the Caribbean, because the enslavers in the Caribbean did not want to waste 1 acre to grow food for the enslaved folks down there, and also sent down cloth that's similar to the tans that they put the brothers in that's at Rikers Island. It's the same thing. Teaching them that people like Aaron Lopez and Jacob Rodriguez Rivera, Jewish enslavers who opened the first synagogue in the 1700s in Rhode Island. Very, very successful people cornered the market on candle making, and very brutal. And also teaching them, and also teaching white educators and principals to make sure that when you hear these young men calling each other the N-word, this is another way that we are systematically, verbally, energetically throwing guns into each other's faces, and enslavers and oppressors get off on it. Teaching them to say, no, I don't see no N-word. That's a word used by white terrorists when they were in pursuit of murdering us. Teaching white educators to say, I don't see that. I see royalty, I see divinity, I see great, powerful scholars with potential. Teaching them that, and teaching them to be kind and humble, and to know when to be quiet and listen, so that we can continue to learn. As much as I know when to be quiet and listen to my elders. Thank you, everybody, for contributing.
Thank you, Moses Harper. Next is Annette Wilcox.
Hi, my name is Annette Wilcox, and I'm a member of the U.S. Freedmen Project. I wanted to give some information to the commission. You read the bill that was written. The New York Freedmen Project met with the sponsors of the bill and legislators about 30 different times, because we wanted the community of eligibility to be people who descend from slavery in the United States. We were told, get the bill signed. The commission can decide anything they want. If they want to vote for lineage, they can vote for lineage. If they want to vote for a bureau, they can vote for a bureau. So that's the facts that we were given when we were pushing to have the bill be correct, with the community eligibility be correct on the bill. As far as the eligibility being for only people who have ancestors enslaved in New York, why? New York didn't just participate in the slavery, it profited massively. New York City became an economic powerhouse by financing, insuring, and transporting Southern cotton and textiles mills spun in it. Its banks funded it, its ships carried it. So much so that during the Civil War, New York's mayor proposed the city succeed. Let me make it personal. My great-great-grandfather, Archibald Mobley, who was born enslaved in Georgia in 1826, he was one of 4 million enslaved people who picked 4 million bales of cotton in 1860, nearly 2 billion pounds. And much of that cotton passed right through New York ports, fueled by its banks. To say now that his descendants, people like me, don't qualify for reparations in New York because he was enslaved in Georgia and not in the Bronx is historically false and morally indefensible. It ignores New York's central role in slavery economy and continues the theft under a new name, bureaucracy. New York was the Silicon Valley of the slave trade. China may make the iPhones, but Silicon Valley is the ones that are responsible for it. And that's the same role New York City paid.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. And we appreciate the clarity that you provided us. Next is Tanisha Grant and Don Greer. As they prepare and come to the mics, next we have Paris Green, Kathy Dean, and Linda Roots. We look forward to Tanisha Grant.
Madam Chair, before we begin, I just want to thank so much for the testimony that we just received, and I am so sorry that that is what was communicated to you, because our understanding of the legislation is we are guided by the legislation, but you sharing that does certainly provide insight as to why it is there is a different understanding as to what the legislation provides. So I want to thank you for that, but we are bound by the legislation. That is how legislation works. Okay. Be well. Thank you.
Hey everybody, my name is Tanisha Grant. I am the Executive Director of Parent Support in Parents New York, right out here in Harlem, Y'all know who I am. I'm always out in these streets. But I want to talk about something that I have not heard, and I want y'all to consider. And Tim, you don't answer your phone. I spent my first 3 weeks on this earth in Lincoln Hospital by myself. When we talk about the child welfare system and that beautiful Baba of us talked to us about how, they would separate the mother from the child and give them to the child welfare enslaver. I was stolen twice. So I really want y'all to keep in mind that we have an insidious institution called the child welfare system, and it steals black children like me and separates them from their families. I'm about to be 50 years old. I just found my family, and it is more traumatizing than being separated from them. So when we're talking about reparations, let's talk about reparations for all the black children that literally was separated from their lineages, their origins, and I'm not talking about back then, I'm talking about 1976.
Thank you. Can you repeat your name for me? Tanisha Grant. Thank you, Tanisha. So I want to call Aisha Smith, and I apologize that I missed you. I thought I called your name, but Aisha Smith, please come to the mic.
All right, so let's get straight to the point once again. As June 10th approaches and commemorates the emancipation of the enslaved Black American ethnicity, and after emancipation, it is mandatory to repair the people you financially profited off of and denied generational wealth in the same way you damaged them. Reparations direct cash payments for reparations direct cash payments for the direct cash you denied. Thanks for getting it recognized as a federal holiday, but what does that really mean if we still haven't received the debt that's owed to us? If we're not talking about lineage-based reparations to Black American descendants who can trace their ancestors back to 1865 census records and direct cash payments, then what are we really talking about, and why are we wasting time? What are the numbers? What are the numbers looking like right now? How will the payments be distributed? Are we going to receive direct deposits automatically? Are we going to get cash, checks, within the next 24, 48 hours? Is the payment scheduled weekly, bi-weekly, at the beginning of the month, twice a month? Additionally, we are looking for lifetime payments, the same as the Jews, Japanese, Native Americans with the casinos. These are details that need to be addressed. Lastly, again, we are advocating for lineage-based reparations, delineation. We are a Pacific ethnic group with the Pacific culture. We are not a big melting pot here in New York. That's a lie. Anti-Black American hate crime bill with classified with protected status, protection from CPS for Black American children, and the same protection that Native American children have under the federal law and status. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Just as a point of clarity, I just want to make sure that everyone knows that the role of the commission is to bring recommendations. And so we haven't defined what those recommendations are. We're going to do our research and then bring those recommendations back. So next we have Don Greer. So thank you, Don. And as Don prepares, if Paris Green, Kathy Dean, and Linda Roots would prepare.
Check, check. How y'all doing this evening? I see a lot more faces in here. I said, how y'all doing this evening? Much better. Now, I just want to say this first and foremost. I hear y'all. It's a lot of frustration, but it's also a lot of love in here, and it's a lot of passion. I am a ward of the state. Just like our sister over there said, I was in foster care, ACS, Harlem, Dowling, all of that stuff. You know what I'm saying? My mother, the system did a number on her, and she fought for this country. My aunt fought in Desert Storm, Saudi Arabia. My grandfather fought. My earliest ancestor, born in 1849, Karita Sessman. You know, God bless her. Because the women in my family, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't even be standing here. All the atrocities that they had to go through. We all been suffering. We all been hurting, right? The foster kids do need it. You know, them kids have been separated, they've been taken, and they being trafficked. You know what I'm saying? the incarcerated brothers who didn't do half of the things that are being said about them. They're being turned into modern-day slaves. And after we take care of everybody in New York, yes, we have to take care of our Jamaican brothers and sisters, Caribbeans, Galifano, all of that shit. You know why? Because we always enslaved from here to over there. And what you think? You think a person in New York with shackles on their wrists was just here? You ain't think they was shipping slaves across different borders? You bugging. You bugging. Nobody's free as long as one brother got shackles on their wrists. As long as y'all keep arguing amongst each other and don't see each other as brothers and sisters, they still win. Always understand that. We are one people. We stronger together as a fist. Cut the bullshit. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Greer. Next we have Paris Green. Paris Green, you're next.
New York reparations is a straightforward task when it is clearly defined and accurate.
Can we make room for Paris Green? Can we please honor Paris Green?
Can I get my time back?
We sure can. Can we please honor Paris Green so we can finish? We only have until 8 p.m. So let's honor Ms. Green. Go ahead.
New York reparations is a straightforward task when it's clearly defined and accurate who is owed. Black Americans are an American ethnic group. Our ancestors were subjected to U.S. chattel slavery in our homeland, followed by dehumanizing laws, policies, and practices in its aftermath. With each generation, it stripped them of their wealth their labor created, barred them from passing it down, and instead burdened their descendants with inherited debt. Reparations must begin with direct cash payments. This is not negotiable. It's not talked about enough. It's not a handout, it's restitution. A handout is this task force begging the governor for more time and more millions because you couldn't complete your job with the time you were given. A handout is weaponizing the identity, ancestors, and documented harms against Black Americans to tether immigrants and their descendants of African descent into a justice claim they have no right to. But that won't ever happen because why? That's unconstitutional and is deplorable and pathetic. You see where it's gotten Robin Ruth Simmons, who headed Evanston, Illinois reparation. Right, Ron? That's an ongoing lawsuit right now because it's race-based. New York reparations is a lineage-based matter only. It has nothing to do with Black and brown, people of color, minorities, marginalized, people of African descent, immigrants, or their descendants. Black Americans are owed stolen wealth and the ability to finally pass it down. Not to mention a housing program, a free college program, and a scholarship program for U.S. chattel slavery. Building this empire, stolen wealth, and generational harms is not repair. It's an insult and it's more damage. Direct cash payments. This task force has 18 months left to fulfill this as a top recommendation in your report. Hopefully you will complete this this time, on time, and not have to ask for more millions and more time. That's a handout.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Just for a point of clarity, we have not gotten any additional money. It's the same dollars. But I want to thank you. And next is Kathy Dean and Linda Roots.
Okay, my name is Kathy Dean. I am a present-day direct New York State descendant of freedmen and a global war on terrorism disabled veteran. I am presenting historical evidence and solutions regarding the inequitable distribution of military bounties to my two ancestors, soldiers of the 14th Regiment, United States Colored Heavy Artillery of the Civil War, Hill Cherry Sr. and his son, Hill Gillum, also known as Hill Cherry Jr. These records show that Hill Gillum was credited to New York State and promised a $300 bounty, of which only $100 was paid. In contrast, no bounty was ever paid to Hill Cherry Sr., who was credited to the town of Henderson in Jefferson County, New York. Further documentation confirms that Hill Gillum was credited to the towns of Cazenovia and Hamilton in Madison County, New York. Additionally, one record indicates Hill Gillum received a $100 credit for clothing, although it is unclear whether he physically received the clothing or if it was paid on his behalf. Hill Cherry Sr. physically served from New Bern, North Carolina, but his enlistment was credited to Jefferson County, New York. Supporting evidence, source documentation. The following source documents support these findings. Muster and descriptive rolls from Fold3 and Ancestry.com. New York State Town Clerk Register, Cazenovia-Hamilton. Military service records for Hill Cherry Sr. and Hill Gillum, alias Hill Cherry Jr., from the National Archives and Records Administration. These primary source documents confirm that Hill Gillum enlisted in New Bern, North Carolina on February 17, 1865, was credited to New York, and was paid only $100 of the $300 bounty. Thank you. I will submit the rest of it.
Thank you. Ms. Dean, please do that. 518-473-3996. We appreciate your testimony. Next, we have Linda Roots, Arlene Wilcock, I can't read but it's G. Barnes, it looks like, and Brooke.
My name is Linda Roots. I'm a life member of NCOBRA. I'm affiliated with December 12th movement, and I am one of the delegates for the Durban 400. And if you don't know what Durban 400 is, look it up online, watch the video. I want you to go away from this meeting and all the meetings that you have, keeping a couple of things in mind. Slavery wasn't just in New York. It wasn't just in the United States. And the fight for reparations is a worldwide fight. If you follow the work that the Durban 400 did, you will know how to engage the world in the struggle, because that's what happened in Durban, South Africa. We engaged the world in the struggle, and it's going on everywhere. When you think of solutions, think of New York as part of the world. We need to be able to function in New York and function in the world, and the reparations should be crafted so that we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roots. We honor your testimony. Next, we have Arlene Wilcox.
Hello, my name is Arlene Wilcox. 2 minutes. I am a member of U.S. Freedmen Project, ADOS, and every other lineage-based organization you can think of. I have one question for everybody. If my parents moved to South Africa in 1976, would I be eligible for reparations today? You don't have to answer that. I'm just putting that out there. I want to recognize Jovan Scott Lewis, the Jamaican-American professor who stood up for lineage-based reparations in California. And now I just want to put a couple of stats out there. The 2023 pre-report says that median household income in New York City, Afro-Caribbean, 92,574, Continental African, 81,457, American freedmen, 66,067. Think about that for a minute, which brings me to disaggregation. The only way to determine who should receive reparations is to first understand who the descendants of slavery are and what their lived experiences have been. To do that, we must disaggregate the data and recognize descendants of U.S. chattel slavery as a distinct group. Facts. Without disaggregated data, their specific struggles remain invisible, buried under broad racial categories that ignore lineage and history. New York State has already passed laws to disaggregate data for AAPI and MENA, Middle Eastern North African communities, because lawmakers understood that not all ethnic groups within those categories share the same experience. The same must apply to the Black population. There are people who insist that no difference between Black immigrants and the descendants of slavery, whether someone's lineage traces back to southern plantations or whether they voluntarily arrived here, don't matter. That's simply not true. I'm going to skip everything and ask you to support two bills, A63418, sponsored by Nikki Lucas, and
Thank you.
AS664.
We appreciate you, Ms. Wilcox. You can finish your testimony of 518-473-3997. We have 21 people, 2 minutes apiece. That takes us to over 40 minutes, and we only have 32 minutes. And so we need to make sure we're not going to get to everyone. I just want to tell you that now, unless we shorten the time to 1 minute. And so we want to honor everybody and get to 1 minute, or we can just, there'll be some people that will miss it. But we want to make sure that we try to get to everybody. And we have to honor the Schomburg. We thank you them for allowing us to use this beautiful facility today. But we have 21 testimonies. So let's try to get to, but we're going to have to do a lightning round. So next is G. Barnes and Brooks, and then we're probably going to have to abbreviate. If you guys can come to the microphones now. G. Barnes, you're next, if you're at the microphone. And I'm sharing, we're going to skip, so next we're going to go to Brooke. And if Marguerite Hannah and Nia Chul Bauman and Dr. Glenn Vickers can come to the mics, we can just keep this going.
My name is Brooke, and I just want to remind everybody that reparations is back payment for services rendered. If you weren't here and you did not render any services during slavery, you do not qualify for reparations. Nationality and citizenship are loud conversations today. While people are flying, boating, walking, riding into this country in the pursuit of U.S. citizenship, none of these groups share the centuries-long history we have on this land. None of them fought this government and won. None of them are owed a red cent by this nation, but the freedmen are. Freedmen, that's the title this government gave us. Foundational Black American, that's the name we chose for ourselves. We are Americans. How dare you fight for others to be called American, yet refuse to acknowledge who we are and call us by our name? We are foundational Black Americans. We were here before the U.S. was formed, before this was even a destination for immigration. We built this nation. This country wasn't a place that people longed to come to, not at first. Even Europeans didn't want to immigrate here willingly. Many were sent by force, prison or exile. That was the bargain. They were sent here because this land was not desirable, not until we turned it into something that now the world fights to enter. Call us by our name. We are the freedmen. We are the foundational Black Americans. No disrespect. No disrespect to continental Africa or Africans, but how many of them are dying to come to America and become what we already are? Aren't thousands, no, millions of them fighting for American citizenship right now? So again, call us by our name. The refusal to recognize us by the name we chose is giving white racist Cassius Clay Muhammad Ali energy from skin folk who clearly aren't kinfolk. In today's climate—
Thank you, Brooke. We appreciate you. Marjorie Hannah is next, and Nia Chul Bauman and Dr. Glenn Vickers. Thank you. No, it's not a minute left, but we thank you.
Okay, are we resetting?
You can call in.
Okay, I definitely hate to follow that. That was wonderful. I'm Marjorie Hannah. I'm an American descendant of slavery. I am affiliated with the American Descendants of Slavery Advocacy Foundation, New York. So we're not speaking in abstractions tonight. We're standing in a community where the state and country has repeatedly erased, replaced, and exploited American descendants of slaves and continue to do so. Our lineage is cited but not often represented. We are being replaced not only in housing, but in data, academia, government, and philanthropy, and media. This isn't just structural racism, this is ethnocide. The state enabled destruction of a distinct people through cultural, political, and demographic erasure. ADOS is a category, and it's not currently a recognized category, and it's probably so that no one is held accountable for our repair. 1 in 1 in 5 Black Americans currently is an immigrant or child of immigrants, but you wouldn't know that from the programs labeled Black. These programs use our suffering as moral cover, then
Thank you.
redirect resources
Thank
to
you,
people
Ms.
with
Ann.
no ancestral ties.
I appreciate you. You can call the number at 518-4. I'm going to do it next one. 518-473-3997. Nia True Bauman, and then Glenn Vickers. And after that, we're going to go to 1-minute testimony so that we can get everyone here. If you're at the mic, go ahead and speak so we can keep going. Are you Nia True?
Hi, my name is Nia Chloe Bowman. I'm up here today because I want to support why we should have New York State education as a part of one of the reparations in this curriculum, because it would pretty much dissipate the angerment when it comes to why we need to be sharing reparations amongst Black Americans, Caribbean Americans, because we are a part of a shared piece of history. If you understand the economic trade and where the money lies, the Wall Street market was selling Caribbeans from New York and sending them back to the Caribbean. If we understand that the sugar to rum production was taking the sugar cane from the Caribbeans, shipping it to New York, distilling it into rum, and shipping it back to the Caribbean. If we understand the contributions of Caribbean Americans, there would be no hip hop, there will be no Malcolm X, and there would be no Marcus Garvey. So we are one people, and that means here in New York, we had to consider reparations for the uniqueness of our history. Please include the history as a part of the curriculum so that we as a people can be less angry with ourselves and love ourselves better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Bauman. Listen, I want to remind you all that we need to honor the public hearing. Listen, if this continues, we'll have to stop. Listen, I'm sorry, Ms. Bauman, you had your 2 minutes. We'll have to stop. Next is Glenn Vickers. Okay, excuse me. Let's honor Mr. Vickers. Thank you, Dr. Vickers. Listen, we will end this right now, because this is not the way we want to honor this work. This is not the way we want to honor this work. So if we could stop, we will end this public hearing right now. So we already acknowledge that the way we will be, and this is not the way the commission wants to be, and this is not the way we want our public hearings to be. This is a space to honor all voices, and we're not doing that. And if you can't do that, we ask you to leave, or we will end this. Thank you. Dr. Vickers.
Hello? Okay, great. Thank you. My name is Dr. Glenn Vickers. I'm a Bay, I'm a Moore, and I'm a former Suffolk County Assistant District Attorney. I have been fighting the criminal justice system with certain allies, Altamatics and other people. What I wanted great ancestor, I wanted you to know about the 1991 Minority Report. It is the most in-depth look at a criminal justice system in the history of America. It's here, 4 volumes, and it concluded that New York State is running an apartheid-like system of justice, damaging the Black community. Consequently, if that report had concluded that New York State was running an Adolf Hitler Nazi-like system of justice, New York Jews would demand reparations and would get it.
Thank you, Dr. Vickers. You can call in. As of right now, we're going to begin 1-minute testimony if we're at 1 minute. Okay, so already, thank you. I can't see the timer, so I appreciate you guys. Hayward Johnson, you are next. After Hayward is Noah Batchow. I apologize if that's wrong, and JJ Briscoe, if you can come to the mics. And then next is Dr. Cody Kesley, Javier, and Jason Christopher Brown.
My name is Hayward Johnson. I'm an American descendant of slavery. My ancestors fought for every war in this country.
They fought to become Americans, not Africans, not anybody else. Reparations are lineage-based, and it should be handled by the federal government. So all of the commissions should get together and present their cases to the federal government so they could solve this for us, and us only. Thank you.
Thank you. Noah. If Noah's not here, next we're going to go to J.J. Briscoe. J.J. Briscoe's not here. Dr. Cody. Oh, okay. If you don't move, I'm moving. So next is Dr. Cody. After that, Kesley and Jason, if you can prepare to come to the mics.
Hello, thank you so much for hosting this commission hearing, and I'm honored to be able to speak today. My name is J.J. Briscoe, and I'm a founding member of the New York City chapter of Get Free. We're an organization making reparations a mainstream political demand rooted in justice, repair, and equity for millennials and Gen Z. We stand in the legacy of the abolitionists and civil rights leaders who came before us. We see reparations as a part of our unfinished work of building a multiracial democracy, and we call on this commission to embrace our repair mandate, which is comprised of 5 pillars based on UN model that has been used in other member states. So number 1, we need to restore the dignity, freedoms, and rights to all those wronged under racial hierarchy. 2, return wealth, land, and resources that rich corporations and the 1% owe due to generations of exploitation, genocide, and enslavement. We need to heal our communities from the ongoing impacts of policies, lies, and violence. And we got a couple more, but I'll make sure to share it in the report.
Can please email that to us. Dr. Cody, you're next. Okay, next we have Kesley. I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly.
Okay, give me a second.
We're gonna have Jason.
Okay, no, I'm here, I'm ready. Okay, good evening, commissioners. My name is Kesley Janvier, and I'm a leader with the Get Free New York City pod. And it's a youth-led movement to repair past harms, remove ongoing barriers to equality, and realize a future where freedom is for all of us. I come to this committee as a Scarsdale resident, and I'm also 22. I just graduated from Georgetown, and my future is just, can I speak? Sorry, thanks for the applause. No, my future is just beginning. It just started like 2 weeks ago. So I'm here to remind the commission that whatever path this takes, lineage, I don't care, we need to center Black youth. Black youth are the ones who are paying the price for enslavement still, regardless of where they came from. And we see these echoes of enslavements every day. Reparations offer us an opportunity to right the historical wrongs and to let New York State lead the way. So thank you for hearing me, and yeah, bye.
Thank you. Jason Christopher Brown. Next, we're gonna have Frederick Newsom. And then after that is Kay Fider and Nathan Flowers. I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly.
Yes, my name is Frederick Newsom of 40 years of Harlem Hospital and in Cobra and a foundational African American. I just want to remind us, laying aside family bickering, that we do not know our rights as far as the injury that we have suffered. Namely, every man, every woman, every boy and girl who was able to talk came here speaking a language. Those languages were violently eradicated. In our list of grievances, of injuries, we should never fail to include the eradication of languages. You even think about eradicating French and German and Japanese, you can get into trouble. Why do we have well, it's been beaten into us not to regard the languages that we lost.
Thank you, Dr. Newsom. We are grateful to you. Next, we have Kay Fider and Nathan Flowers.
I don't need that. But anyway, I'm Kay Fider. I think the only independent
black media outlet here speaking on behalf of reparations. As a foundational black American descendant of slavery, we find it insulting that the Democratic Party continues to study reparations. The same party that sanctioned slavery looked the other way during kidnappings of free black people and turned its back on the suffering, asking us to be patient yet again. No way. And all of you legacy organizations in here, I go way back with a whole lot of y'all. I work very closely with Attorney at War Automatics. So I see D12, I see IBW 24, I see National Action Network, I see the Urban League. All of you are compromised.
Thank you. Now we have Jack Cash and Loretta Humphrey, and I'm sorry, I can't read the name, Ya Nzinga.
I'm Nathan Flowers.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm with Vocal New York, Voices of Community Activists and Leaders. I'm the one who went up to the mayor in the gym and asked him what he was going to do about homelessness. I was evicted from my home at 34 and a half years. Lived in a women's shelter for 5 years. I'm now in my own apartment and pay a third of my rent. They now want to increase it to 40%. This is how they're getting rid of us and moving us, and we have to fight it. And I say, call your representatives and your congresspeople, your legislatures, your assembly people, and your senators. Just call them. They have to tell them who called and what you said. You count. We really need it. And we can do it. What does it talk? When we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. I marched with Martin Luther King in 1963. My badge is 62 years old. I'm gonna fight till I die. Well, I gotta die. Let's do this today, all right?
Thank you, Ms. Nathalyn Flowers, and we appreciate you continuing to fight. Jack Cash is next.
Hi. These recent lurid sex trials have showed us that the faces of slavery and the methods of slavery have changed into forms that are weirder and more unexpected than we can keep up with. There are more slaves now than there were during original slavery. Reparations will save lives. Never in the history of slavery has it ended by appealing to morality. Make it expensive. Make it expensive to do this to people. These were crimes. Punish people for their crimes. Make it so that it is illegal now and illegal in the future by making it expensive to commit crimes. Your ancestors and your descendants will thank you.
Thank you, Jack Cash. Next, we have Loretta Humphrey. Thank you. Ya Nzinga. Next, we have Roger Wareham. Next, we have Divine Prince. Oh, Roger Wareham. Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Wareham. Next, after that, we have Divine Prince and Alexis Foote, if you can prepare. No, we're just going to have 1 minute, but thank you, Mr. Prince.
Good evening. My name is Roger Wareham. I'm a representative of the December 12th movement, an organization that has been struggling around reparations for over 30 years. Just want to make really one point. These local initiatives like the state and the city are important, but they can also be a danger. They're important because they spread the concept of reparations around people and broaden people's understanding of what reparations is. But it can be a danger if they think that by trying to address it in these small niches, we don't deal with the fact that in the final analysis, it has to be the United States government that deals with reparations. And we should use these initiatives to continue that national motion. Finally, our position on reparations is that African people were the collective victims of a collective injury and that the repair has got to be collective. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wareham. After Divine Prince is Alexis Foote and Sade. Mr. Prince, you have the mic.
Okay, 1 minute, right? All right. So I want my reparations in some minutes back from this, but really quickly, African American is a racial term. It means anybody that has origins in the black racial groups of Africa. Of African descent is also a racial term because it excludes the Indians, the white and Indian Africans born on the continent. Unfortunately, the legislation has these racial terms, so any recommendations that comes out of it will be unconstitutional. The idea that we're all just Africans in our respective locations where the boat dropped us off is the problem that we have here. Because Pan-Africanism has pushed itself onto this reparations claim and is now filtering it through that lens. What has happened is now we have us fighting amongst ourselves because people that are also of African descent that did not go through what the American freedmen did in this country feel like they're entitled to the repair. And so if you did not go through the harms, you do not get the repair. Something happened to you. It's a separate claim, not ours.
Thank you, Mr. Prince. Next, we have Alexis Foote. She left. Next, we have Sade and Nehemiah Roll and Edward Isaac, or Earl Isaac. I can't read the first name. If they are not here, oh, I'm sorry. Let me make room. Okay, if you can come to the mic when I call your name, we have Beatrice, Kevis Love, and Chantel Williams. I think she spoke already. Okay.
Yeah, I'm Ewart Isaac. I'm from the beautiful state of Antigua and Barbuda in the Caribbean. And I just want to say that I'm not opposed to reparatory justice, but I think that the way to empower ourselves, if reparation is to empower us, is through education. We have to educate ourselves, educate our youths, and when you get education, then you're empowered. Dr. John Henry Clark says, the main purpose of education is to be a better handler of power. And when you have power, you don't ask for nothing, you take it.
Thank you. If you can introduce yourself at the mic, we'll have the next person.
My name is Beatrice Beckford. I'm here on behalf of the Malcolm X grassroots movement. I want to be clear from the start. Reparations is not just about slavery. It is also about what happened after slavery and what is still happening now. For Black families, especially Black women and children, the harm has never stopped. It has only changed forms. That is why we say reparations must go beyond money. It must acknowledge, affirm, resource, educate, and operationalize systems of support. It must stop the harm, restore what was taken, and invest in our collective futures. I want to also lift up Black women, my comrades and beloved sisters who have held up entire families while being overworked, underpaid, disrespected. We deserve reparations that acknowledge our labor, the medical neglect we endure, our cultural leadership, and the violence we have suffered. We reject lineage-based reparations because the harm has never only been about ancestry, it has been about race. All Black—
Thank you, Ms. Beckford. We are grateful. Next, we have Kevis Love, and if Lauren Johnson and Alfreda Thompson can prepare. You can introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Karis LeVay. I'm an artivist. I'm with the Gathering for Justice. The Gathering for Justice was founded by the late great Harry Belafonte. It is now led by Carmen Perez Jordan. Like I said, I'm an artist. I just want to say my enslaved family members, Ida and Philip Eady and Fanny Tanner and William Black. Those are my enslaved fifth great grandparents. From South Carolina, North Carolina, and some of their kids were enslaved right here in New York. As an artist and an activist, I worked on the housing coalition here in New York State, and I'm going to tell you what made us so, the 2020 housing laws, what made us so powerful is that we centered the most marginalized. You guys are going to keep running into this if we do not deal with the fact that there are feelings here because of lineage and race and et cetera. And as someone who's married to a Jamaican man and I sit in CARICOM meetings, they don't do this because they don't have an issue with lineage. They don't have an issue with lineage.
And so, thank you, Ms. LeVay. Your time is up. Next we have, listen, if this continues, we're gonna stop. We're gonna stop. We're going to stop, and we thank you all for coming, but we said that we would honor the public testimony, and we thank you all for being here. We're going to end the public testimony right now. We thank you for being here today, but this is not how we will communicate as commissioners. For those that did not have an opportunity to provide testimony, you can reach out to 518-473-3997, or you can email the commission and go to our website at ny.gov/reparations. We thank you those that came today. Thank you for being here. Good night.